And here we go, Grenada and the rest of the world. A very good Sunday morning to you. And yes, today happens to be the 12th day of January 2020. Notice the pause? Still getting used to saying 2020 and not 2019. I'm George Grant, thanking you for joining us for this weekend's edition of Sundays with George Grant. Couldn't think of a better way to start the week. And let me tell you, man, beautiful, beautiful Sunday morning. You know, every morning that I get up and I see the kind of weather we're having here, I'm so thankful to be living on what we sometimes refer to as a little rock. Well, it's one of the most beautiful rocks on this planet. Pilgrims, oh, look at that, look at that. Guess who's up first this morning? Penny. Well, only just a few minutes ago I heard from Penny, and she is having some really weird weather out there in northern Quebec. They're having cold temperatures and even rain. Yeah, it's a mixture, up and down, up and down. Penny, penny, penny. Grenada still beckons. Here, whenever you're ready. In addition to Penny this morning, I see that Ernesto is there. He is, the race between these two. Looks like Penny won this morning. She probably spent the night on her keyboard waiting to go. Wow, it paid off, girl. Bernard Gilbert saying good morning, and so is our good friend Mags, Margaret. Kipling Francis is sending his blessings, and Penny says, good morning, Ernesto. How you been? she's taunting Ernesto because he's been beating the stuffing out of her over the past few weeks. Well, here's a name. I don't think I've seen this name before. I've seen this. Kay Dents is saying good morning to everybody. Grenada Sunshine is sending blessings. And Joan Welling, hello there, Joan. Saying good morning, Mr. Grand Class. Nice day to everyone. Ryan's early this morning. He's saying good morning to you guys. And Anthea is saying good morning and wishing everybody a happy Sunday. Arthur Langine, our good buddy out there, the kitchen garden man, saying a happy Sunday morning to you, Brother George, and your listening public. Kathleen Thomas also saying howdy to everybody. And there he was, over there he is, Anthony the Riggs. He says, I see there was another fire in St. George's. Yes, Anthony, and we're going to show that to you in just a wee bit, sir. Hang in there, hang in there, hang in there. Boy, I have enough smoke in my lungs to last me a lifetime. I was down there yesterday. Bradley Vespre, one half of the Vespre family. Vespre couple, saying good morning. Peter Bishop is saying morning from a rainy Long Island. Hello, Bish. Margaret Francis is saying, Penny, you can come to New York. We're having temps in the 60s. And, well, Peter is having some rain in Long Island, but Mags, I think, is in Brooklyn. Nutris Williams. Hey, Nutris, she's saying good morning. Headmaster George. Wow. Wow, I have so many designations. Whew. Thanks, Nutris. Ernesto is saying good morning from Baltimore. Now, Derek Isles is saying just morning. Good or bad? Morning. Well, morning to you, Mr. Isles. Nutris says, I see school is in progress and process. I think she meant progress. Well, yes, Nutris, call it what you will. We're going to have a fun time here this morning. And John Franco is probably in a rush. He just says, GM. Yeah, John, I know you mean good morning. Well, so folks, those are the pilgrims who are already on the good ship, Sundays with George Grant. Now, let's take a look. 5 minutes after the hour, let's take a look at what we got going for the next 3 hours. It's going to be a fun morning, eh? Fun morning. Very informative, very informative. As always, we begin with the buzz, where you will hear a reading from the Holy Scriptures and editorials. Now, let me tell you, hey, yeah, you stay quiet for a little while. Um, Again, this week, no editorial from the Grenada Advocate. However, we do have one from the New Today, which is captioned Lawlessness. Does that seem to define where we are in Grenada right now? Interesting editorial. God help us. And then, as if this is not planned, but as if to replace the Grenada Advocate this morning, we do have a piece which was written by a very well-known gentleman here, retired architect, gentleman by the name of Norris Mitchell, formerly the head of the Woody Redhead Foundation, also a very outspoken civic leader here in Grenada. Norris has, it's kind of long. I'm warning you right now, it's kind of long, but powerful. So you listen to what Norris has to say this morning. You're not going to regret 1 minute that you spend listening to this morning. So, we then get to our features. And for those of you who are looking at our rundown this morning, I just put it up here on your screens. What you see on your screens a little bit different from what we have written on the web page. On the screen, on the web page, it says the aftermath of Thursday's fire in St. George's. I wanted to show you guys, the remains of that fire on, I think it was on Thursday morning. Yeah. And then yesterday afternoon, after lunch, I thought, let me lie down for a little bit and get 40 winks. And then I heard my phone. You know those alerts that you hear when a WhatsApp comes in? So I decided, okay, let's forget about the 40 winks for a sec, take a look, just in case it's something important. Another fire in St. George's. I thought, well, so much for the 40 winks. So George gets out of bed, heads downtown. Who told me to do that, boy? I found myself at the scene of the fire. Smoke. You'll see some of it in this video. So yes, there was another fire downtown. The second one in 3 days. So this morning you're going to see 2 fire videos, if you don't mind. All right? I also want to run a piece which we did on Friday morning. Now, you know that Friday mornings we usually have Brian Pitton here, but Brian was not in this week because we had some technical difficulties. But replacing Brian on Friday morning was somebody who just happened to be in Grenada at the right time. Gentleman by the name of Mr. Johncrow Alexander. I have chosen to describe John here at Johncrow, I beg your pardon, as a New York-based Grenadian philanthropist. John is down here doing some work, and when you look at the web page there, it's described as the diaspora helping Grenada, but with major concerns. I know that not many of you who are with us this morning could join us during the week, because the program runs from 9 to 10. Good Day Grenada runs from 9 to 10. It's work hours for a lot of people. So I thought I'd run this by you this afternoon, because this man raised some concerns based on his observations during his visit. And I was so glad that he came in because he drew to the attention of the Grenadian people some of the major issues that we as a developing country face. And a lot of these issues could so easily be taken care of just with a change of mindset. That's all, you know. That's all. No big deal. Well, you know, they say probably changing somebody's mind is the hardest thing to do. Well, yeah, there's probably truth to that as well. So you wait until the piece with John comes up, Johncrow. And then, you know that one of our missions here at Grenada Broadcast, I guess that's why they're referring to us as classroom and the headmaster and all that stuff in there. One of our missions is to try and educate our people. I'm sure you've heard terms like digital currency and cryptocurrency. What the heck do those things mean? And what are they going to mean for you in the coming years? Well, I set out on a mission a couple of weeks ago to get somebody to come in here and explain that to us all. I say us because I'm just as dumb when it comes to that stuff as many of you probably are. Dr. Stephen Fletcher, who is a researcher on alternative currencies, international trade, and development finance. I expect Dr. Fletcher to be sitting here at about 11 o'clock this morning. Okay? And he's going to explain to us digital currency. And I think that's something we really, really need to pay attention to. Because it seems like one way or another it's a done deal. You're going to have to cope with it. We are going to have to cope with it. All right? So, my dear friends, there goes your rundown on this, the Sunday, the 12th day of January 2020. Let me get back here now to, let's get back here to social media. See, who day and who do day. Oh boy, you guys are really pumping it out this morning. Wow, that's a lot of scrolling to do. Okay, let's start here with Grenada Sunshine. She says, oh yes, Margaret, it's summer in January. Osmond Lewis is saying good morning to you guys, and so is Mr. Martin Carmichael Simon. Hello there, guys. Nutra says trouble all over the world. I guess she's talking about the fire. By the way, what's happening in Iran? I haven't been following that much lately. Cecilia, hello there, Cecilia John. She's saying Happy New Year, everyone. Wishing everyone the best for 2020. Nice to see you, Cecilia. Thanks for joining us. Patricia Williams is saying, Margaret Francis, good Sunday morning from a warm Brooklyn today. Well, I'm trying to figure out, you know, Long Island's not that far away from Brooklyn. So I'm trying to figure out, you know, what's going on. Pedro says it's raining in Long Island. Margaret says it's warm in Long Island. I don't know. Ryan Jabon says it's partly cloudy and 74 degrees Fahrenheit with a high of 83 today. And the sunshine state of Florida. Yeah, Ryan. Go on, show off. He also says green shirt. Yes, you like my green shirt? Eh? Like my green shirt? Yeah, there's my green shirt. Sawandi Fabio Sam saying good morning. Hello there, Sawandi. Roger Mitchell saying good morning to you guys. Jackie O, hello, Jackie O in Washington. How goes it, girl? Renewed purpose. Say good morning. And hopes that we all have a great day. We are going to have I've started having a great day. You guys are here, aren't you? Therefore, Georgia's having a great day. So far, so good. Can get better. Um, uh, Ernesto is saying, good morning, little angel. Yes, Ernesto, little angel has a nice short piece for us again this morning, so check it out coming your way in just a wee bit. K-Dance, I beg your pardon, says, lawlessness in Grenada, yes, too much in existence. Amen, Kay. And Kathy Roberts also saying good morning to you guys. Spice Babes Duncan saying good morning. Hello there, John. John says, good Sunday morning to all of the pupils, viewers, and listeners on this very windy Sunday on dependency number 1, Carriacou. You know, John, this week I did see an advisory on social media about a lot of these islands, all the way up to, I think, like St. Martin. Strong winds, and yeah, my drapes have been blowing all over the place here. Things have gone tumbling. It has been windy down here for a couple of days. But thank God, that's just about it, some wind. Nutris Williams says, you are surely doing that. I'm not quite sure what she's referring to, but okay, Kay Dents says, yes, but they don't like the word change. Terrible mindset. And they feel because you travel, etc., and feel we compare Grenada. However, they slowly adopt and adapt what these big countries are doing. Okay, Kay. Hello, Clive. How's Jackie? Clive Devers from out there, and I think his home is in Ajax. But like T.F. Richards, this man is all over the place, all over the place. So goodness knows where he is this morning. But he's usually in Ajax, Ontario. Claude Budna is sending his blessings to everybody. Ernesto wants to know if I'm attending the cricket game today at the stadium. No, Ernesto, I got work to do, boy. Got a lot of work on my hands. I work 7 days a week. You forgetting that? Nutris Williams says they admitted to downing the airline. Okay. They did? See, there you go. Look at the things you learn here on GrenadaBroadcast. Thanks, Nutris, for the update. Clyde Baker is saying, good morning, Uncle George. It's another sad day in Little Grenada. Uncle George, how close to you was the fire? Thank God that no one was hurt, Uncle George. I'm enjoying your show. Well, good morning, Clive, and thanks for joining us. Clive, when I jumped out of bed after reading that WhatsApp, I could actually see billows, and I mean billows of smoke. As I looked, I'm here on Willits Road, so when you look over Old Fort, you could see the smoke coming up from behind Old Fort. You don't get to see the stuff in just a minute. Clive Devers says, attended the beautiful celebration of life service for Jimmy Emanuel yesterday and woke up to a siren alert from Pickering Nuclear Plant stating that there was a nuclear spill this morning. But residents that live close to the facility should not be worried as a cleanup is in progress. Oy, oy, oy. Blow that nuclear waste away, Clive. Hope that you and Jackie are going to be safe. Arthur Langine says, wait a minute. Arthur Langine says there was another fire in Happy Hill. Well, that one ain't reached me yet. I don't know when that was, Arthur, but that one hasn't reached me yet. Charmaine DeLille is saying good morning and blessings. Whoa. John Nosy Neck, because he keeps his eye on the news. Thanks, John. John says, crowds gathered on the streets to get the Ayatollah fired for lying. Oh, yeah, the world continues to tumble. Let them go at it. Let them go at it. I'm just thankful. Like I told you this morning, I'm thankful to be on this little rock we call Grenada. I'm truly blessed. Nutris Williams says, you're welcome. Hope the Third World War is not on our doorsteps. I have seen so much about this being a prelude to that, Nutris, on social media over the past few days. I think a lot of people are paying very close attention. That'd take you to find that out there, Ryan. Yeah. Ryan says the firefighters came on the scene and the hose busted. Yes. Apparently, I don't think it busted on the scene. Apparently, there was a hole in the fire hose from the previous fire. Somebody posted on I have a WhatsApp forum, and somebody posted that on there. Hey, Georgie, don't go there. I ain't going there this morning. Yes, Tom Ortega, I beg your pardon, says, good morning. Yes, former PS Sandy David's house burned Saturday morning. Yes, I did see that. Yes, I did see that, sir. So 3 fires in 3 days. Jean Pascal. Hello there, Jean. She says, good morning, Gigi. And we pray that the high wind and rain will abate soon. Blessings to all. Jean, I like the winds. You know, it's kind of annoying when you have the drapes blowing all over the place. But I like the breeze. It keeps this place kind of cool, doesn't it? Yeah. Tim Tom Ortega says, in the Molinaire area, her house was partially burnt about 4 months ago. Yeah, I did hear that. And Jackie O has gone cockeyed over all the news about the fires. Okay, pilgrims, I think that's going to do it for the time being. Let me, time to get down to brass tacks. Look, it's 22 minutes after the hour already. So let's, hold on. John says, Britain's ambassador to Iran reveals how he was arrested for inciting protesters in Tehran after going to what he thought was a vigil for victims of the 737 tragedy, only for it to turn into a demonstration against the Ayatollah. Ooh. See what I mean about the world spinning? Kabonk, 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 kabonk. Okay, yeah. Let's go to our little break now, and we'll come back with a buzz.
Inspection and licensing have begun, and at Hubbard's, we want you to be ready. From January to February 15th, we're offering vehicle owners with single registration letters 1 to 2,500 and plural registration letters 1 to 250, 10% off our new torque tires and Power Max batteries. Don't get caught unprepared. Visit us today at our motor department in Mungay or our tire bay in Grandance, located near Hubbard's Building Supplies.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Quad Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank. And there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home.
Together with you, our customers, we energize our community.
Together with you, we energize our economy.
We are working together to give our nation a better tomorrow.
With you, we energize our future. Together, we energize our nation.
Thank you for partnering with us
as we energize our Spice Island.
Redleg, energizing our Grenada. Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Alrighty, folks, it's now, 25 minutes after the hour. Let's turn to this week's edition of The Buzz, and we begin with a reading from the Holy Scriptures. Today we begin, the first of two, we begin with 2 Timothy chapter 1, verses 6 to 14. For this reason, I remind you to fan the flame. Fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. So do not be ashamed of the testimony about our Lord, or of me, his prisoner. Rather, join me in suffering for the gospel by the power of God. He has saved us and called us to a holy life, not because of anything we have done, but because of his own purpose and grace. This grace was given to us in Christ Jesus before the beginning of time, but it has now been revealed through the appearing of our Savior, Christ Jesus, who has destroyed death and has brought life and immortality to light through the gospel. And of this gospel I was appointed a herald and an apostle and a teacher. That is why I am suffering as I am. Yet, this is no cause for shame, because I know whom I have believed, and I am convinced that he is able to guard what I have entrusted to him until that day. What you heard from me, keep as the pattern of sound doctrine, with faith and love in Christ Jesus. Guard the good deposit that was entrusted to you. Guard it with the help of the Holy Spirit who lives in us. Once again, pilgrims, that reading, 2 Timothy chapter 1, verses 6 to 14. I mentioned that little angel has a little piece for us this morning. Thank you so much, little angel. Missed you last week. Her piece is captioned, Being Good. One of the best things to move forward with in 2020 is a good self. But to do so, it is important to know what it means to be good. According to ancient Greek philosophers, wisdom, temperance, justice, and courage are the four virtues which identify a good person. When someone is objective and reflective, it is a sign that she or he is wise. Prudent and good people are known for fact-checking. and avoiding bad decisions. They are moderate in their behavior, are able to manage their emotions, and avoid temptations which come with power. Good people are also fair-minded and respect the rights of others. They stand up for what is right and what they believe in. They also stand up against injustice and unfairness. They take responsibility for their failures and mistakes. They follow the rules and do not break the law. One way of finding out how good a person is to ask those who know. Another way is to pay attention to the person's legacy and what he or she has left behind. Leaving behind good is a good legacy and the work of a good person. Every Grenadian should make an effort to be good and invite good people into their lives. Signed, Little Angel. Thank you very much, Little Angel. Let me get back here to social media. Let me see. Hold on a sec here. Carlene Vesprey, the other half of the Vesprey couple, has now shown up, sending blessings. Clive Devers says, George, you will always be regarded by me as the most successful person in Grenada because you pray and have faith in God and the Holy Spirit. Whew. Heavy stuff, Clive, heavy stuff. And as I read that, I'm thinking here, he's one of the people, he and his dear wife, have helped me along that way. Yes, Clive, it's the most important thing in my life. Most important, my faith in God. Renewed Purpose has placed a URL here, a link. I'm sorry, Renewed Purpose, but I didn't have the time to go read that right now, but thank you very much, whatever it is. Lawrence Kruthoff is saying, hi, George, good morning to you and all your viewers. I'm here watching and listening. He's always watching and listening, and I can never see the guy. Happy Sunday to you, Lawrence. Bob Marichaux is sending his blessings on this Sunday morning to you all. Pilgrims, okay, dokie, dokie, dokie. Where are we? Yeah. Take another break, and then we shall return with the editorials.
GrenDec Community Partnership Initiative.
We at the Dorothy Hopkins Center can always rely on you for your steadfast help. It's always forthcoming. We have seen the benefits already. Our bill has been reduced, I was told, by over 40%, and that is welcome because that translates to more care for the residents. And so, thanks again.
GrenDec, energizing our community.
Conveniently located in the Grenada Shopping Center, for over 40 years, Food Fair has provided quality service at affordable prices. Now, grocery shopping is made easier and more convenient from the Food Fair web store.
Hey, babe. Listen, I need you to go down to Food Fair to get some groceries.
All right, no problem. Right away.
Thanks, babe. What are you doing? You're supposed to be going Food Fair to get a grocery, man.
I am, but didn't you know you can order your groceries online from the Food Fair web store?
Are you serious?
Of course. All you have to do is just to log on to www.foodfair.gd with credit card in hand, and with an order of $100 or more, Food Fair Grenadians will deliver up to 3 miles away. And you don't even have to worry about your information, you know. Their safety measures are excellent.
So hold on. You just order online and Food Fair will deliver to you?
Yep.
Oh, baby, better hurry up and order, man.
I already did. They should be here any minute now.
Enjoy easy online shopping anytime from your home or office from the Food Fair web store. Food Fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try their sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
All right, folks, there's a little note that just came in here. Clive, I think this is going to cause you to go, whew. This should make you happy. Bob Blanco, thank you very much, Bob. Bob Blanco says, good morning, George. Ontario Power Generation says that an alert about an incident at the Pickering Nuclear Generating Station east of Toronto early on Sunday morning was sent in error. Hear that, Clive? This is probably a whole mistake. He goes on to say there is no danger to the public or environment. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Bob. Okay. Pilgrims, just going back a little bit, Roger Mitchell's referring here to Little Angel. Roger says, very nice piece, Little Angel. And you recognize that too, hey, Roger? And Ernesto says, great piece, Little Angel, always. And I believe 2020 will be the year of fact-checking. All right. Now, folks, let us turn to the editorial from the New Today, which is captioned, Lawlessness. Check this out. The Fabian Purcell episode has brought into sharp focus the rubber stamp nature of the Public Service Commission and the massive breakdown of institutions in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique under the watch of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell. The New Today has discovered that a political operative of Mitchell's ruling New National Party by the name of Carlton Darker Frederick has been sent into the physical planning unit within the Ministry of Finance to take over from Purcell, who has been sent on leave. Less than 3 months ago, Mr. Frederick was elected as the treasurer of the NNP at the party's annual convention. That apart, Mr. Frederick, a retired public officer, is known in the St. John constituency as a key political operative with the Member of Parliament, Fisheries, Alvin Dario. This newspaper contacted him on Wednesday, and he confirmed that he was sent into the office on Monday as a replacement for Mr. Purcell. When asked who sent him into the government department, he did not answer. Mr. Frederick also admitted that he did not get a letter of appointment to act as head of physical planning by the PSC, which is the only body in the country entitled by law to appoint persons to posts within the public service. It is quite clear from Mr. Frederick's answers to the questions posed to him that he has no legal standing in the PPU and cannot give orders and directives to anyone within the department. So, it still begs the question, who sent Mr. Frederick to take charge of the physical planning? And where is his authority to do so? 3 hours earlier, the New Today had spoken with the chairman of the PSC, Mr. Prescott Swan, who indicated that he did not know anything about Mr. Frederick, since the commission did not appoint him to the post in accordance with the law. Mr. Swan confirmed that the PSC held its weekly meeting on Monday, and no documents came from the Ministry of Finance, headed by Prime Minister Mitchell, on the impending appointment of Mr. Frederick to the top post in the department. The PSC head also expressed dismay that Mr. Frederick would be brought back into physical planning, given the fact that he had to be removed by the commission before, in peculiar circumstances. History has a strange way of repeating itself. The current Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Mitchell, was Minister of Works in the 1984 to 1990 NNP administration of late H.A. Blaze, when one of his close political aides, Norris Nelson, had to step down from the executive post on the NNP constituency branch in St. Patrick West. Former Prime Minister Tillman Thomas of the Congress, who was then a member of the NNP, had raised the conflict of interest issue at a party meeting. And Nelson did the decent, right, and honorable thing and resigned as a member of the NNP to remain as a public officer. Today, the situation is virtually the same with Carlton Frederick, an executive member of the NNP who was being sent to take charge of physical planning. And Mr. Frederick has gone on record as saying that he was sent to the PPU, but not by the PSC. If not PSC, then who sent him there? He also said that he was told to take charge of the department. But when asked who made that particular announcement, he quickly shut up and hung up the phone. The current situation raises the serious question as to whether or not there is in existence 2 PSCs in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. One recognized by the Grenada Constitution, and another one that is hidden and under the control of the political directorate of the day. What is the Public Workers Union, our President Rachel Roberts, doing about this untenable state of affairs? The PWU should get into action and immediately instruct its membership in the service not to take any instructions from Mr. Frederick, since he has no legal clothes of any sort to take charge of the unit. In addition, Mr. Frederick, as an experienced public officer with over 30 years of service, ought to know that he should not have showed up for work on Monday without a proper letter of appointment from the PSC. The new so-called PWU boss should not have even showed up at the Lagoon Road office, since he is known to be wearing the political hat and clothes of his NNP party as its treasurer. When will this growing state of lawlessness in Grenada come to an end? Pilgrims, that's the editorial, which appeared on Friday in the New Today. Okay. Let me scroll back here and see. You guys are really hopping this morning, eh? So bear with me. Bob Marishow says, Bob Blanco, welcome. Have not seen you in years. Keep some iodine tablets in the house close by if you live next to that nuclear-powered station. Oh, let's just pray that everything's going to be okay out there. Lawrence Kruthoff says, hi, Bob, good morning. Do you remember the days of BBC beach parties? Ah, Mr. Kruthoff, party guy, eh? Arthur Langine says, I know who sent him to that post. That's referring to the New Today's editorial. Sure, Arthur. Kay Dent says, yes, history has a strange way of repeating itself, and those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. Clive Devers is speaking to Bob Blanco here. He says, the Iran government stated that the downing of the Ukraine airline Boeing plane was shot down in error, and accused the U.S. government for their high alert status as a result of the Iran government expecting a backlash for the Scuttle attack on the Iraqi bases that housed U.S. and Iraqi forces the day before. The world is going crazy with false news. Did the control tower in Tehran register the takeoff of the Ukraine flight departure? I don't know, Cleve. Yeah, I remember Iran said it was an error, but the feeling I got here this morning as I read this is that, hold on a sec here, is that they were admitting, well, yeah, I guess they're admitting. You're admitting you did it, but you're saying it was an error. It was not something deliberate. We'll see where that goes. Don't have time to deal with that this morning. Oh, Arthur Langine says, the PM thinks that Grenada belongs to him, but sir, you're making a big mistake. Sir, the Bible says the longest day has an end. Yes, Arthur? Yes, sir? Michael Alexander is saying good morning. He's sorry to be late. Well, we excuse you this time, Michael. Tim Tom Ortega says the Public Service Commission has been I think you meant rubber stamp, Tim Tom, not runner. I don't know of anything called a runner stamp. The PSC has been a rubber stamp for the Keith Mitchell-led administration over the years. And now this administration has become so brazen that they're now bypassing the PSC. It's a shame that the 5 or 7 members of the PSC board have allowed themselves and their morals and ethics to be compromised. Shame on you people who have stayed quiet just to remain in position. Ryan Jabon says, worry not, Gigi. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus, 5th century BC, reminds us that all is flux. Bob Marisho says, okay, we'll skip that one. Now, pilgrims. I see that we're starting to slip behind time already this morning. And I really don't want to keep you guys over time today, right? Beautiful day. I know you want to get out. So, Vincent Rubin says, in relation to Mr. Frederick, that's a clear indication of how corrupt is our country, Grenada. How many more examples do you need? Okay, so let's get right to this next piece, which I mentioned a little while ago. This is not intentional. We have not had anything from the Grenada Advocate for a few weeks now, and I've been told that is going to be indefinite. Don't know what their problem is, but I hope to see them again real soon. I did receive a piece this week, though, from Mr. Norris Mitchell, who is a contributor to Grenada Broadcast. Kind of long, but I want you to listen to this intently. It is captioned, Grenada belongs to all of us. Yes, let's remember that. At first glance, the caption above may appear simplistic, but as Ludwig Mies van der Rohe said, one of America's greatest 20th century architects, quote, simplicity is not for the simple. A thoughtful introspection, therefore, may reveal a completely different picture. The beginning of the 3rd decade of the 21st century could be a good time to start in our evolving history to examine the system of government which we inherited from the British in 1974, by which we are supposed to be governed. Our two-party system of government, which provides for a parliamentary structure, with a party who wins an election would govern, and the other party to sit as the opposition as a check and balance, is predicated on the assumption that the electorate has evolved to the stage where policies, rather than personalities, are the deciding factor in casting one's vote. In this regard, the current scenario exposes our dilemma. In support of this argument, the following analysis is presented. As experienced in our 46 years of political independence come February 7th, 2020. For starters, let's begin with the electoral process. How can an institution which is supposed to cater for the protection and execution of a hard-won franchise, one man, one vote, the bedrock of our democracy, be controlled not by an independent electoral office as prescribed by our Constitution, but by the office of the Prime Minister? What is the message we are getting, Grenada? That our democratic institutions have been hijacked? The function of an election office in any democratic society is to ensure a free and fair election, which would represent the will of the people. This, in my experience, has not been the case in at least the last two elections, where in some constituencies foreign faces, perhaps CBI persons whose identities are known only to the government, seem to dominate the polling stations. Persons from neighboring countries were allowed to vote without an identification card, but on the legal signature of a justice of the peace. But that is not all. The buying of votes with cash and or the giving of building materials with a cooker or refrigerator thrown in, and the impression on polling day that the stations were controlled not by the election office, but by operatives of the incumbent party, are clear signs of a fractured democracy. Not forgetting the recommendations by the OAS and CARICOM election observer missions after the 2013 and 2018 elections for urgent electoral reforms, which have not been addressed and which would have the same unsatisfactory result as in previous elections. Bear with me. Bear with me. Bear with me. Just want to show you the person who wrote this piece. All of the above are a testimony to a gullible electorate who is unduly influenced, not by the policies or programs of the contending parties, but by a bribe every 5 years, while in the interim, they survive on unfulfilled political promises and deception. The state of affairs is a winning formula for underdevelopment and continued poverty in a truly third world massa country instead of people's empowerment. Another anomaly is the first past the post system of winning a constituency seat. This travesty has unfortunately been demonstrated in the past 2 elections, when the opposition party, with the support of over 40% of the electorate, ends up with not a single seat in Parliament. The opposition NDC should agitate for radical changes to the electoral process in our Constitution as a means of reinforcing or repairing the fractured foundation of our democracy. The situation is not conducive to participatory democracy and leaves a large percentage of the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique unrepresented in national affairs. This is made more apparent when the winning party, from all appearances, does not include the members of the opposition as part of the Grenadian community, worthy of sharing the little benefits of a third world country, with its policy of exclusion and victimization. Unless these conditions are rectified, genuine progress and prosperity would elude our poor Grenada, where the brain power of almost 50% of our small nation remains underutilized. Another critical observation is the appellation honorable. No sooner than a member of the public wins a seat in an election, he or she immediately becomes an honorable person. Not even the British, from whom we inherited the system refer to their parliamentarians as honorable, just members of parliament. Our third world Anglophone politicians appear to be more interested in their public ego rather than the essence of leadership and people's empowerment. How can Grenada belong to all of us when the poor and politically unconnected are denied justice from a system that is broken, apparently by design, in order for fraudsters and crooks to live off the fat of the land with impunity? In an economy that is booming and we are told is the most robust in the Eastern Caribbean, with a rich soil structure and good climate, which could support a vibrant agricultural industry to feed ourselves, our food import bill is in the millions of US dollars annually and is rising fast. A booming economy that produces hardly anything and imports almost everything. A consumer society, which is an inbuilt formula for economic failure. All of this brings into question the leadership of our country. Is winning all 15 seats an election on 3 occasions an index of progress? Or put in another way, what significant progress for the better has Grenada made under a government that has been in office for such a long period? Almost 30 years? The answer would, of course, vary with the color of one's politics. But there are universal criteria which classify genuine progress as opposed to poverty and dependency, which seems to be our Grenadian destiny. In this regard, let us put the spotlight on one such immediate and urgent criterion, that of infrastructure. The infrastructure of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique is nearing collapse. In the capital city of St. George, for example, a brief list on this occasion will suffice. Derelict and abandoned buildings on almost every street in the town of St. George. The desecration of the market square, which should revert to its original function as an open public space, and the relocation of vendors. Restoration of York House, still pending, 15 years after Hurricane Ivan. The repair of the public library, now closed, going on 9 years. Repairs and upgrading of Fort George, a major tourism site. Flooding and drainage, including the River Road area. Broken pedestrian concrete sidewalks. The parking nightmare. Street vending. Garbage collection and disposal. And the greening of St. George's. Any prospects for a UNESCO nomination? The fire on Grenville Street, which destroyed 4 buildings in the early hours of Thursday morning on January 9th cannot be omitted under infrastructure. The confusion and disorderly installation of the town's aging electrical distribution system and vagrancy are causes for concern. And any upgrading of St. George's into a climate-smart, resilient city, as proposed, must take these factors into serious consideration. It should also be noted that 3 of the buildings were wooden structures with limited fire resistance in a busy and congested commercial area of the town. In the St. George's suburban area, the recent collapse of the Western Concord Main Road at Molinaire and the road slippage on Marrast Hill, together with Windsor Forest Road in St. David, are wake-up calls to the Ministry of Works that professional design, construction, and a rapid maintenance schedule should be the criteria in utilizing the best professional talent available, and not used as a means of providing jobs for party supporters in an effort to drain the swamp of ineptitude and corruption. Grenada would never get value for money with this myopic policy, which would only plunge the country into additional debt while consigning us further into underdevelopment. In a related matter, Clem John, a resident of St. John, has reported on page 7 of the January 3rd, 2020 issue of the New Today that the Concord Bridge, which was built in 1864, 156 years ago, is cause for concern. The constant use of heavy and oversized construction vehicles for which it was not designed to accommodate has become a potential danger, and the urgent need to construct a new bridge in order to avert a potential disaster was brought to the attention by the St. John's parliamentary representative many years ago. Attention was also drawn in the article to the broken section of the road between Woodford Bridge and the hot mix plant at Perseverance, overlooking Halifax Harbor, with a wooden barrier and 3 empty oil drums used as a deterrent for the past 3 years. It is also subjected to heavy traffic on a regular basis, like the Concord Bridge, and could result in a Molinaire-type land slippage into Halifax Bay, with no apparent alternative road between St. George's and Guave should this occur. In both reports, there has been no response from the parliamentary representatives. Since Grenada belongs to all of us, we must have a say in the governance of our country. The parliamentarians who sit in the House of Representatives are our representatives. They are obliged to reflect the wishes of the people, not the opposite, which, regrettably, has become the norm. Our recent history has shown that one-manism, the maximum leader, is not a formula for success or secession. The GULP died with the passing of Gary. The revolution imploded with the assassination of Bishop. And the incumbent party, apparently, is headed for a similar fate. Because Grenada belongs to all of us, it is therefore our sacred duty to do what is necessary to reclaim our country for ourselves and for posterity, and not leave it to the greedy few who wish to control it for themselves by any means. That, Pilgrims, was written by the gentleman you see there at the top left of your screen, Mr. Norris Mitchell. Okay. Really running behind time, but I just believe that it's very important that I share your comments, your views on this. Now, even before reading the very first one, I want to remind you, and I hope you did, please take your time and make sure you know what you're writing. Bernard Gilbert says the LNP administration is writing some Grenadians like horses, and some are getting branded. To so, the damage already been. Please, folks, take your time and don't go blaming it on your keyboard. Take your time, or I am just going to ignore you. I am tired of asking because I'm really trying to accommodate you. But some of you make life a living hell for me. Vincent Rubin says, in relation to Mr. Frederick, that's a clear indication of how corrupt is our country, Grenada. Spice Babes Duncan says, George, I just started listening at home. I just started listening. Home chores had me occupied, so I couldn't chime in. John Nosyneck says, Ireland 32-4-2 in 12 overs. I guess he's watching cricket, eh? Okay, John. Sonia Mathlin Scott says, a pleasant morning to all. Ernesto Jose says, I'm about to look at the game, but my favorite Manchester City, FC, is playing today also. Ryan Jabon says, Grenada politics is about becoming and passing and John Franco says, throughout history, this type of unchecked behavior has caused people like Castro and NJP to evolve because Goodbye. Ryan Jabon says Grenada's politics has no permanence because the very river in which you bathe a second time is no longer the same one you entered before. Ernesto Jose says, if we think what went on in physical planning is bad, wait for when our election is closely approaching. M. Claudius MacLeod says, what? In a parliamentary government, the opposing party that received 40% of the vote has no seats in the government? Whoa, what is going on down there? Aline Betty Horsford saying good morning to you guys. Tim Tom Ortega says, apart from a few areas such as Fort Judy, Egmont, etc., the rest of Grenada is like a shanty town with little shacks set up along the roadsides, broken roads, poor drainage, abandoned vehicles and buildings, and a nasty stench in the towns of Grenville and St. George's. This is an indictment on the leadership of Keith Mitchell. Johncrow says blatant disregard of true democratic representation. Sean Notab says, morning, Sunday truth bomb. Ryan Jaman says, it is the fault of limited outlook and not the fault of the essence of things. Tim Tom Ortega says, the level of ignorance and illiteracy is so high amongst the high numbers of poor people that they suffer for 4.5 years and then vote back the same people who caused their suffering just for a stove, windows, or money in a t-shirt. And the cycle of suffering continues. Yeah. John Franco says, as far as Grenada belonging to all Grenadians, seem to be in the past with the sale of citizenship. Yeah, John. John Nosilek says, M. Claudius MacLeod, without proportional representation, nothing will change. First past the post is convenient for those in control. M. Claudius MacLeod says, John Franco, indeed. But how does this change? Is the current state as much a reflection of a weak, feckless opposition? Ryan Jaban says, fear not, everything is becoming and passing. Be not deceived, everything is becoming, so says Ryan. Ryan, you're speaking in parables this morning. I'm really trying. I'm really trying. Anthea Rello says, powerful piece by Mr. Mitchell. But as he says, Grenada belongs to all of us. Question is, are we going to do anything about it? Too complacent is what we are. Amen, Anthea. John Best is saying good morning. Roger Mitchell is referring to that piece by Norris Mitchell. It says, very factual observation. Jackie O says, Grenada is so corrupt, only God could help. But the citizens and residents must turn on God for God to turn things around. Grenada puts the sea in corruption. And Anthea Rello agrees and says, so true. All right, pilgrims, all right. Let me, trying to move along here. Let me turn right now to the aftermath of that fire. This fire on Thursday actually began at about 3 o'clock in the morning. I understand that the fire department was on hand within minutes, but they were unable to get into action because the electricity to the buildings had not been turned off, okay? 4 buildings were destroyed, but it could have been a lot worse. I went down the following day, well, later on that same day, to take a look at some of the damage that had been done. Take a look. Alrighty, folks, that was very early in the, no, that was Thursday afternoon. I shot that, I think, about 1:30 on Thursday afternoon. The fire actually supposedly started about 3 o'clock in the morning. But that was Thursday. Yesterday, there was another one. Actually, 2 more as far as I understand, but I was only able to get to one, and that's the one that took place on Williamson Road and the Four Roads part of St. George's down there. And this one, it's a short video, but it's really intense. Check this out. I got down there, I guess, about 3 o'clock. And before I run that, let me see what's going on here. John Nosianek says, why do the fire services not have a qualified electrician on hand to isolate the current on these cords? John, if they had, tomorrow morning, somebody else would come up with some other, why not? You know, why not? Why not? John, we can't do everything. There are a lot of things we need to be doing and can be doing. But John, let's face reality. Everything cannot be done. And it's only when incidents like this happen. Arthur Langine says, the taxman is going to suffer. My God isn't sleeping. Let's see here. M. Claudius McLeod says, this is sad, but sadder because of the knowledge of the conditions Norris Mitchell highlighted in his opinion piece. Given the record of inability by government to adequately address past crises like this, one who cares can only feel dispirited. Martin Jessamy says, this is just the beginning. No one really cares. Okay, folks, let's take a look at that fire yesterday afternoon.
What's your piece? Oh!
Everything's burning. I can't talk right now.
Dog, anyway, take the next one. The next one we've started lighted already.
Next also.
Why, what them people, where the fire boys?
I'm joking here. When that house come down, when that house going no time. Now you want man? One? Now you want? You know what? They bring 2 tanks up on top. They bring 2 tanks up on top.
Okie doke, folks. We're scurrying along here. Look at that. Yesterday afternoon. Kind of sad, eh? So 3 fires in 3 days. Jeez, let us get by today, please, Lord, without another. All right, folks, I want to take a quick break here now, and then we'll come back with Johncrow Alexander.
Inspection and licensing have begun, and at Hubbard's, we want you to be ready. From January to February 15th, we're offering vehicle owners with single registration letters 1 to 2,500 and plural registration letters 1 to 250, 10% off our new torque tires and Power Max batteries. Don't get caught unprepared. Visit us today at our motor department in Mungay or our tire bay in Grandance, located near Hubbard's Building Supplies.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Co-op Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank. And there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home.
Alrighty, folks, on Friday morning, I had a conversation with a gentleman who was visiting the islands, Grenadian, but lives in New York. And Johncrow Alexander is somebody who is part of the diaspora community. And he's been doing his part to help us out here in Grenada. This guy puts together things like walkers and beds and so on and so forth to send to the needy here in Grenada. And he was very disappointed on this visit he just made because of what he observed. A lot of it you are already aware of. You heard of it. You've seen it yourselves. But I thought, I need to share this morning with a much larger audience than we do on a Friday morning because it's important that you get a real, true picture of the realities of Grenada rather than the propaganda about Grenada. So, please, Johncrow Alexander. All right, folks, the moment you have been waiting for has arrived. Take a look at that gentleman there. Don't know whether you've seen him before or not, but that's Mr. Johncrow Alexander, New York-based Grenadian-born Johncrow. He's one of those persons residing in the diaspora who was always on the prowl, looking for ways to assist his dearly beloved homeland, Grenada. Spice up. Good morning, John. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. I'm thankful and blessed. I'm feeling very thankful this morning to people like yourself and others who have impacted my life. That's my day status for today. I'm quite thankful and quite grateful.
It's the first time you've actually been in here with me, but you've been on my Sunday program before.
Previously, yes.
Right?
Yes.
So tell me, first of all, a little bit about John and then the reason why you are here. You're not just gallivanting, are you?
No. Even when I'm gallivanting, I'm still, I was born to watch and observe and make comments, and all my life that's what I've been doing. I was born in a tiny little speck village known as Noel's Hill in St. James, St. Andrew, Grenada.
You got me there.
Right. St. James, Noel's Hill is when you leave Ladig, because you grew up in Grenada.
Yeah.
I mean, Caruth.
Yeah.
Right? So then you go up past Ladig, right? Past where what is known as Felon, where the doctor's house used to be.
Uh-huh.
All right? And you go past Den River, and you pass the spout, and you keep going up the hill. As soon as you get to make the first right, well, actually, it's the second right, but the first traffic right you could make in that roadway is called Noel's Hill.
Okay, you
Right.
were.
And then inside that roadway is a little road going down the hill called Shodo.
Okay.
Grenadians wondering what the hell am I talking about. But
I'm sure Anthony the Riggs knows what you're talking about.
he's a tongue boy, and he went to Guelph. He ain't know nothing about Birch Grove and those kind of places.
Anthony, you heard him.
But
Okay.
anyway, that's where I grew up. Was born there. My grandfather had a famous rum shop. Grew up in that rum shop environment. My father, who was an only son, he had a tailor shop in Grenville. And I went to SAS, graduated out of SAS, under Cresswell Julian. And we had, so Grenville, Birch Grove, well, St. James first, and then I moved to Birch Grove with my grandparents, so that my high school years I was mostly with my grandparents in Lower Capital, in the Palms, which rarely was when I became the kind of rebel that I became.
Kind of rebel. At least you're honest about it.
No, I no question. Then I started my professional career as a teacher at the Birch Grove RC School under Carmen Henry. I did that for about 3 to 4 years, I think it is, and then I migrated to the United States.
Okay.
And have been living out there now for beyond, I would say, in the vicinity of about 40 years.
Utris Williams says she has family in Birch Grove.
Who's that?
Utris Williams?
That name don't ring a bell.
Okay.
But we have some.
Ding dong.
We do have a few William families in Birch Grove and stuff.
And somebody named Maria St. Bernard. She says, "Hello, Johncrow. I met you in Toronto last summer."
Okay.
Maria.
Okay.
You met so many women here.
And listen, I run into, two people back to back on day before yesterday in Grenville. And the guy came up to me, he's like 7 feet tall, and I'm looking up to him, right? He's much younger than I am, and I'm looking at him, and I know the face. And he says, "You don't remember me, do you?" I said, "No." And then when he mentioned his name, he says, "Anthony." I said, "Oh, yes, now I know who you are."
Yeah.
And the same time, another lady was walking past, and she heard Johncrow, so she stopped literally on a dime and spin around, And he's trying to refresh my memory, and I said, like, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I really don't remember you. And then when she mentioned the family name, who she belonged to, and so on, and I said, "Wait a second, but you used to be a tiny little skinny, twig." She said, "That's me." I mean, now she's all grown up and everything else. So
that's something I wish I had taken from my mom. My mom could name everybody she met 200 years ago.
I don't forget faces, but I'm going to forget your name.
Yeah.
And it might take me a little while to make the connection, but I'll remember you eventually. There's someone I met recently, and we knew each other. We went to school together, and we had this long conversation. And I know that the person knew me. And at first, I could not place them. But a few days later, in my memory, I pulled them out, and I was like, okay, now I was able to make that connection.
John, before we talk about the reason why you're here, I got to find out. This Johncrow. When I heard Johncrow, I thought, okay, that's a nickname. Is Johncrow your real name?
Okay, let's get this straight.
Explain it,
I'll
please.
explain it. When I went to school in Old Church,
where I went to school as well. Teacher Bridget.
Remember Teacher Bridget?
Yes.
Okay, then. So I was in Teacher Bridget's class one day. We were reading Caribbean Reader, and in Caribbean Reader, there's a story about Johncrow is the ugly bird, as I found out now, it's out of Jamaica and Panama. Now, in that class, that was a real rebellious class. Now, up to that point of that story, even though I was new to the school primarily at the time, coming out of St. James, and teacher Lilac School in St. James, right? But I came into the school already knowing how to read, because my grandfather's shop was right next door to the private school, teacher Lilac School, and I would be sitting on the back step of the shop and listening in on the lessons being taught in the school. My father subscribed to the Trinidad Guardian, the Sunday Trinidad Guardian. So I got the Sunday Guardian at home every Sunday, and he would give me the comic section, that was my section of the paper, and I would read. Then as I move on better, improving the reading, he'll give me other sections of the paper to read. So I went to school being able to read. So when I got to Old Church, I was the one giving everybody's nicknames. There was one girl, she was, kind of tough looking. So she got a nickname of Monkey Bone. There's a guy who got the name Bambi because he was just hopping all over the place. So I was the one, administering names to folk. So when I got to this section of the book, and I'm in the back, and that was my station, and the entire front row said, Johncrow, and as we're reading down the passage, and it says, the ugly bird, and so everybody turned around with a finger in my face and says, Johncrow, oh God, look at Johncrow like the ugly bird, because I was the ugliest guy in the class. So I got the name. Now, at first, I went to my father crying with his name and upset about his name, and I'm mad as hell. And he said, but what do I call you? Because my middle name is Louis, L-O-U-I-S, from Louis Pasture, because he named it. And he has his name is Louis. And so the L theme ran through. In this ugly bird story, when I got to my father, he says, but that's not what I call you. That's not what your grandfather called you. That's not what your grandmother called you. It's what you're upset about. He said, you're answering to a name that's not your name. And so that sort of gave you the boost to stand up and face it. No matter what I did, I couldn't shake the name. Then I discovered my skill or talent as a performer. And I realized that having a name as a performer So I turned the negative around of the
Okay.
name and used it as my official name.
Okay.
And I use it as my official name
To this day.
to this day.
All right.
Now, Alexander, the only reason why you're seeing Alexander on Facebook is because Facebook tell me that I cannot use a false name. I have to use a real name, you know. And I can't talk to you now. What are you calling me for? I can't talk to you. I can't talk to you now. What are you calling me for? Anyway, so as a result of that, now Facebook is what revealed me, and so more people now know Alexander as my name. But for, I would say, most of my life, very few people knew what my full name is. As a matter of fact, one time I had a court action and somebody was trying to serve me papers and they couldn't find me.
Johncrow Alexander. That's where we leave it.
That's, yeah. I mean, Johncrow. I don't use the Alexander unless it's official documentation.
Just Johncrow.
Just Johncrow.
So like John's your first name, and is your first name Johncrow, or is your first name John and your surname Crow?
Yes.
Yes, to which one?
It's the John, first name, Crow, last name.
John Crow.
Yes.
Oh.
And I've adapted it, and it's been working. Now, if I have to sign a document, and somebody going to give me some money, and it has to go through the process, etc., then we have to bring in the government name. The government name is Alexander.
So John Alexander.
Yes. Or John Crow Alexander.
Glad we got that cleared up.
So, I mean, but very few people know the story. I mean, being the ugliest guy in the class and so forth. But, you know, it's what it is. It is what it is. And I wear it proud.
Somebody named Lawrence Kruthoff, a regular visitor on this forum.
Okay.
He says here, good morning, John. Do you remember Rochi?
Yes.
From Birch Grove?
Yes. That's him. That's Rochi, yeah.
So we got a John Crow and we got a cockroach. Boy, what a morning we're having here. Let me tell you.
Rochi has Rochi has a story because he is a member of a very prominent family from Birch Grove and brother to a prominent, could I say politician? I guess you could say politician here in the island.
Okay.
Yeah.
What brings you here? John, listen, I know that over the years you've been putting together care packages for this place. You've helped schools with computers, you've helped with health care and this and that. What's it this time?
Well, I am in the middle of, I'm doing a series of things I'm doing. The health issue, and I'm really and truly staying in health. As a matter of fact, I'm filing papers right now to create a non-profit organization here. The name of it, I can put it out there because it's already registered. I help Grenada PC.
I help Grenada PC.
CP, I think is, yeah. I help Grenada CP Incorporated.
Okay.
That's what I help Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. That's the CP. That's the organization. Because I find myself, okay, last year, this in 2020, so I had to say year before last, for the first time, I was instrumental myself, Barbara Brathwaite, as well as Anne Auguste Hopkin, and the three of us spearheaded this, bringing into Grenada the organization known as HERO, Health and Education Relief Organization. And we came in and did some fistula implant surgeries to patients who are on dialysis and what have you. Fast forward, last October, a second visit was made, and this time it was expanded. And I had to put this word in here. Unfortunately, there were quite a few people who did not take advantage of one of the aspects of it, where we had a specialist who is a joint and bone surgeon, and the idea was to look for people who have disabilities, physical disabilities, deformed hands, deformed fingers, deformed limbs, walking on the toes, to see Dr. His name is Claude Scott, and what he specializes in, comes in, take an analysis of your condition, look and see what kind of adjustments are needed, and then he would then come back, the second trip, to come back and then do the operation to fix whatever it is.
Okay.
They've been doing this in Guyana for the last several years now quite successfully. So people who have cleft lip, some people they born and you can see the teeth actually with those kind of people, or they have the tonsils are, deformed, what have you. Keep knocking the microphone. And they would, so Claude would go in, and as well as John Mitchell, who is the president of the organization. So they will perform these surgeries on these patients and to improve conditions for them. So that's one aspect. Now, the big thing that I'm working on right now, and that's really and truly why I wanted to be on the program this morning, and I appreciate you for accepting that offer, that suggestion, is I've collected several hospital beds, and yesterday, I spoke to Dr. Mitchell Dr. Carol McIntosh, the Director of Hospital Services, and I was so glad that she was able to reaffirm to me the need that the hospital has right now for hospital beds. There's a young man in Brooklyn, his name is Fishtail. Talk about a roach, now you have a fish. So Fishtail.
And a crow.
And a crow. Fishtail is from Bolio, Vendome area. The Francis family, he's belonging to that. Used to be a taxi driver here one time, but he's now working in the, what you call, the aged business. The name goes out my head anyway. But he works in that area, and so he's able to get for me or get a whole lot of these hospital-type beds. And so I've been collecting those, and I have 2 basements and a garage right now full with these items that, according to Dr. McIntosh, they truly, really and truly need them. I'm in the process of trying to ship a 40-foot container to Grenada that contains beds. We have walkers, we have wheelchairs, we have crutches, we have scrubs, and like she said to me yesterday, there are a lot of the small items that we don't think about, like gloves and wipes, disinfectant wipes and those kinds of things. That if you know somebody who is able to make a contribution, is able to, they might not be able to put a physical piece, on the table, but they might know somebody who works someplace that, because in many cases what happens is after they use certain things, they will discard them. No, but we're not looking for discarded, broken items. We're looking for, if it's discarded, but it has to be a functional piece. Like somebody just donated 3 medical terms, urology machine, I think it's called, where they do this scan for veins and what have you, but they're very old. So while it looks good and it looks new, but it's old machines, we can't really use those. It doesn't make sense sending them, because if and when they break, there's nobody to fix them, because the technology has advanced. Right. So I'm not looking for anything that is old, outdated, broken, or breaking. I'm looking for things that are usable, current, even better than new, as we say, brand new second-hand is what we're talking about, brand new second-hand. So if you work in that area, you work in that department, you know somebody who does, that's what we're looking for. I'm also looking for hard cash, because the shipper is asking us for in the vicinity of about $7,000 to ship this container. It will benefit every Grenadian, because if you don't use it, there's somebody who can use it. Yesterday was a great example that the fire that struck on Grenville Street in St. George's, I happened to be at the hospital. I happened to have had a 9 o'clock interview set up with Dr. McIntosh, but I had to pull back and wait, and I have to give credit to the police commissioner. I think it's acting police commissioner.
Acting.
Edwin Martin.
Edwin Martin.
Right? He called all of the essential services heads immediately yesterday morning to have a sit down and see how can we fix and be a bit more prepared for if and when this kind of disaster strikes. So that, and I was present. to hear her after her meeting with on that level, to having the discussion with our crew as to what is it that we have in place to be assured that if Grenlec has to cut power, our generators are ready to kick in immediately without any hesitation and without any delay. You know, and she was on the phone and kicking ass and taking names. No, I mean, and she's my friend. I knew her before she became into this position. She is a no-nonsense kind of a person, and she continues that way. I mean, there have been some flack coming out of certain places here in Grenada because they don't like change. They don't like anybody who coming and want to change the status quo. And so she's not that kind of a person. She's not that. She's the kind of person who wants results, and don't tell her, well, what used to be and what how it used to be. No, she wants what is now and what can we do better going forward. And so last night, in the conversation that I had with her, she was able to reveal to me that there are problems, and she acknowledges it. And however, in her program, she's looking at how we could improve and change those areas of problems that exist. So in terms of me and the medical items, the other thing that I want to touch on, the nursing homes, which is what really sparked me pulling items and trying to get items here. The nursing homes in Grenada, they all need help. As a matter of fact, the nursing homes, there's a home for battered women that are badly neglected. Grenadians, we have a country that is small, but we have people in this country with big hearts. And I'm appealing to you. You don't have to do what I do. You don't have to do it how I'm doing it. You don't have to do what George does. But you have to do, we all have to do something in some which way, whatever small way we can, to improve conditions for our less fortunate. There are people, I visited that home yesterday, and I was in tears when I left. I met a young man, through no fault of his own, who is living in that home because his mother had to flee domestic violence conditions, and he is angry. George, when I tell you he's angry, he's so angry. He picked up a doll, and he dismembered the doll. When I saw him doing it, I said, why are you doing that? He said, he immediately went into Defense Road. Are you a psychologist? Are you a psychologist? You won't tell me that I'm crazy? And I said, no, I'm just asking you, why are you doing this? That's a child. But because of the domestic violence environment that he came from, that anger is in there. And his only way of getting it out is to beat up on inanimate objects. And we have to understand what we do as leaders, as politicians, our people in charge, when we send out these messages and put out these kinds of things and ignore places like Cedar Home. We can't continue that way. There's another home for children. I think it's the Hopkins something somewhere.
Dorothy Hopkins home.
Okay. We can't ignore these places. Yes, the hospital need help, and I'm one of the people who's going to try to help. But you have other institutions where other Grenadians need the kind of help and services that most of us ignore on a daily basis. We walk past like it's nobody's business until something happens and it's a headline. Then we talk about it for 9 days and it's done, as if the problem walked away. There's a culture in this tongue. I mean, I'm going to step on some toes, and you might get some phone calls. This we FM culture that we have here, it has to stop. People who are holding positions, who are in office, and I know I'm talking to you, I'm preaching to the choir, but people who hold office, you have to get off this high horse of we FM. And we FM, for those of you who don't know what it is what's in it for me. We, W-I, we F for me. We have to get off from that. And this under the table dealings, and if you can slip an envelope under the table, then I don't want to talk to you. You're not helping the overall fabric of this nation. And this is not an NDC or NNP bash up on NNP or bash up on Keith or bash up on the government or anything like that. I want to be very clear because there are some people who, I call them detractors, who like to come at me whenever they see or hear me speak that way, and they think, well, you don't like it, or you don't like the government, or you don't this and you don't that. No, I'm saying to you that you are destroying from within. You are within, and you are destroying the very said thing that you're supposed to be propping up. That WeFM mentality has to stop, and that's what's killing us in this place. Anyway, let me get off my soapbox.
I'm glad you're speaking like that. I'm glad you're speaking like that. Go ahead.
I don't mean to. I know because anyhow. Anyway,
Listen,
domestic violence.
Before you move on, let me tell you, they're listening to you, and they're putting their comments here. Let me share some of these comments with you. Okay. First of all, Utris Williams says that's very good, wonderful, the work that you're doing. Arthur Langine says welcome and thanks for your services. Spice Babes Duncan says, good job, Mr. Crow. See, they're listening, John. They're listening. And Utris also says, she was referring to something you said a little while ago, and she says, yes, it's so true. He needs help. So she's calling on people out there to help you and provide the assistance, varied assistance that you've been able to offer. Spice Babes Duncan says, oh yes, the hospital service needs help. And there are many homes in Grenada that badly need support and services.
You see the home in, well, I can't give the location because it's protected and so on. But the Cedar Home in Grenada, home for domestic violence, survivors, I can't call them victims, they're survivors. Someone, somewhere, needs to recognize the mothers, the women, the children, the people who provide the service. They have very little resources. The walls are bare. When I say the walls, there's nothing inspirational, so that you could look up on the wall and see there's a word. There's a young lady in there who is an author. She actually penned and authored a book of poetry. And she wanted to give me her last copy and tell her, no, hold on to your copy, this is one of yours. But the plan in my head is to try to reach out to some friends of mine and see how we can actually publish it, because it does not have an ISBN number, it does not have all the required documentation, so to speak, so that it can be included in the Library of Congress. While in the home, the woman wrote a book. She don't have degree, and she didn't go to college and those kind of things. She wrote a book, her expression, the things that are coming out from inside of her. And she's in that, it's more like a jail as opposed to a home, and the way that I seen it. The workers are there, and you can tell, I'm looking, it's a short visit that I had with them, and they are crying out for help, because I equate the home to Cuba. Cuba is under the embargo, and no matter what it is, they could take a hairpin and fix a car, and they're taking spit in that place to make ends meet, and the rest of us just going about daily lives, normal, no big deal, okay? And we worry about the next party and the next high-class event, etc. We have to take ownership, because these are our children and our mothers and our sisters who are in that home. That Cedar's home is a place that needs, oh God, it needs immediate, it's like a military strike. But unfortunately, there's nobody upstairs in high places. It's not sexy. There's no headlines in that to go. There's a friend of mine, before I came here, I had asked her to, through her business, to pay a visit. And I know she's schedule is kind of hectic, so and it's on her agenda to get there. But even though that's not what my focus is, but the appeal, I'm putting this appeal out right now to pay some attention to Cedar's Home and the Dorothy Hopkins homes and those senior citizens' homes where we kind of a warehouse our old people until they come when the good Lord calls them.
John, let me ask you something before you go any further. Do you have a representative on the ground here? You know, there are people who are watching you right now, just judging by the comments, and they're moved by what they're hearing. And I believe that there are people who would be moved to the point of helping. And please, everybody's being asked for money nowadays.
Right.
Right. So people are fed up with that.
Right.
But John, like you mentioned earlier on, there are a lot of different little ways people can help. How can they reach you?
Well, I'm on Facebook. If you want to get me, you could inbox me on Facebook. You could call my phone number. It's 917-676.
Let me write that on. Let me put this on Facebook right now. John
CROW.
Crow Alexander.
That's me.
Okay, and the number is
917 676 2634.
2634.
Right.
917-676-2634.
Yes. Now, right now, I don't have an official Grenada connection yet. There are individuals who working with, but they behind the scenes, they don't like the names out there, etc. I cannot give out any names on the local level. But in terms of making a financial contribution to the shipment of the items that I now have in my possession, they can send monetary contribution to, it's called Family Renaissance.
Family Renaissance, FAMILY. I'm putting this all out there.
Okay, all right.
RENAISSANCE, Family Renaissance.
813 Maple Street.
Maple Street.
And that's in Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah.
11203. And in the memo section of the check, money order that you would write, you want to put in there for our seniors or our seniors.
In the memo section of check, write
our seniors.
Write for our seniors.
Yes, or our seniors. Either one, whichever. Our seniors is good. So that the Lorraine, when she gets it, knows that that's contribution that's coming specifically.
All right. Family Renaissance, 813 Maple Street, Brooklyn, New York, 11203. In the memo section of the check, write our seniors.
No, a lot of people have hit me up and then they no longer write checks. They no longer
PayPal.
They have PayPal, etc. When I get back to New York, I plan on leaning on Brother John, because before I left, I had asked him whether or not they have a PayPal. I mean, and they're doing this as a favor. They're not obligated. They're not part of the movement, etc. It's out of relationships that we've had over time, and so he's decided to help out by accepting it and being our fiscal conduit with Family Renaissance. So I have no say as to how these financial transactions take place. I think Lauren mentioned that he might have a PayPal situation going, but I'm not sure. So those of you who would want to make a contribution and you don't have check, etc., there's always the money order that you can buy from the post office and mail it in. We'll accept that. Not a problem.
Get that normalized as fast as you can, and then give it to me, and we'll get it out there. Okay.
Absolutely.
But folks, in the meantime, just let me say this. John is not asking for thousands of dollars. You might want to adopt just one person at one of these institutions he's talking about. Folks, you go to the groceries, pick up a packet of Pampers, boxes of toothpaste,
Yep.
some toothbrushes, little things like that. He's not asking for thousands of dollars like you hear these politicians talking about. Oh, we got 20 million US dollars in donation. No, 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 no.
Because
just
children,
one person. Help one person. If a few of you do that, 5, 10 of you do that, you know how many people in those homes are being helped? Please. Please. Yes, John.
the children, I looked at the children yesterday. Like, for instance, there was a young lady, she has a book and on the floor. I'm just sketching away on the floor, and I'm like, they have no choice. And almost all of the mothers who are in this home, domestic violence home, and I'm calling it domestic violence home, it's not really a domestic violence home, but where they're fleeing domestic violence, almost all of them has at least one child. No, that's a generation, if you will, or a school. Children who are living in conditions that they are now housed or sent to regular school. The school children in the regular school know where they live. So when they go to school, they've been heckled and hassled and teased, and they know that child who is in this home, they're coming with a stigma. And so you who is well off, in reasonable terms, well off, there's something that you can do. Maybe take them shopping one day. Maybe take them onto the beach. Of course, you have to go through the various, necessary formalities, etc. You're not just walking and say, well, I'm taking them to the beach. There's a friend of mine, and she's the one who turned me on to the home. I knew of the home before, but I did not know of the plight of the home. And she's coming out of the UK, right? Sandra Johnson. I had to give her some props. And she's the one who brought to my attention how bad the conditions are in Cedar Home. And I spoke to a few people and I mentioned to them, and I never heard of it. And I didn't know that. But you're here. You're here. And we could do things to help.
All right, John, we're running out of time.
I don't want to run out of time.
But I wanna include some more comments here. So what did I say? Comments?
Comments, yeah.
Comment.
Yeah.
Some more comments, eh?
Some more comments. That's
See the things you learn from Georgie Poichi.
That's right.
Andrea St. B. Mitch says, this is heart-wrenching. I told you they're listening to you. Arthur Langine says, Brother John, you are saying the God's truth. Anthony DeRiggs, talking about this, what's in it for me, he said, John, you said it. This pass something under the table attitude must stop. Now, I'm not going to pronounce her last name. Every time I try to pronounce this, I bugger myself up. But somebody named Enid, she says, I 100% agree with your guest. Let me keep scrolling here. Utris Williams says, it's ambassadors like you that Grenada needs.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm booking for the Consul General position in New York. Nobody listening to me. I keep asking.
People like you will never get it.
I keep asking for it, but they're not paying me no mind.
Floyd Nichols is saying good morning. Hello, Floyd. Anthony DeRiggs, he says, important information. Please share the live.
There you go.
Telling people.
There you go.
Always very helpful.
There you go.
Utris Williams says, sponsor a child.
Sponsor a child.
Andrea St. B says, the kids are further victimized by teasing.
Yeah.
Claude Putner says, Mr. Grant, I hope he's not treated like Mr. Simon. the man from, I know who he's talking. You ever heard of a guy named Chester Simon?
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah?
Yeah, I've heard of him. From Switzerland?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Zurich.
I've heard of him.
Chester's another one who has busted his chops to help here.
Well, I mean, I don't know all of what he did and what he did not do, or what all of what happened to him. I've heard stories. I'm a kind of a guy that, while I might not take a bulldozer and knock down the door, but I know how to push a little hard. I tend to push back.
This guy push.
Yeah.
Spice Babes Duncan says, blessings, Johncrow. Some Grenadians defeat their own purpose with this political green and yellow mentality.
Yeah.
It was installed into them. It saddens me as a young person that our leaders that are in a position to apply and make changes are just creating an environment for spite and hate. John, my personal opinion here, that is the truth, and it is shameful.
Shameful.
Okay?
I mean, there's no...
So much money, Spice Babes continues, so much money is wasted in Grenada and unaccounted for by people appointed in leadership positions. All these institutions mentioned by John that's in need of help could have benefited from that wasted cash.
And it's just a matter of redirection. Redistribution. I don't know, I wouldn't pretend to know that what and how much money this country pulls in whatever means that it do. But I do know that it does not take $1 million, millions of dollars to bring a little inspiration to a place like Cedar Home. To put a little a television set or a television monitor, to pipe in some, whether it's music, sound, just something other than just a bare wall and a dirty flow,
Joan Wellington says, great job, Mr. Johncrow. This is a heart for the love of country and its people, love of country and its people. I hope some of us will come on board and join with a helping hand.
So too.
John, on that note, boy, I got a bill.
Gotta go.
See, these people here, they agree to give me an OA every day. Sometimes I drag them along for another half hour, and you see it's 10:30
No,
now.
but I have other appointments
things
to make before I hit the road and all that good stuff. So I appreciate you, George.
Hey.
You are one of the people who Grenadian would say you is one of the people that I like what you're doing, and appreciate what you're doing, and appreciate you for what you're doing. I know your story. I mean, you shared it with me, and I'm sure that your viewers, audience, also know.
Yeah, they know. They know.
We don't have to go over it, but I'll say this much: that keep the faith.
There's a God above.
There's a God above.
Amen, bro. All right, John, thanks a lot. And I don't have to tell you. You can just see and hear by what is out here this morning that they appreciate what you are doing. And I'm hopeful that you have mobilized some proactiveness on the part of Grenadians. A lot of these people listening to you right now are in the United States, but there are also others here who are listening, and I'm just hoping that they will be moved to doing something. And like he said, it they have to be nothing big, $20 million in grant. And then next week, it gone. Way gone. Nobody know.
I don't know.
I don't
But
know.
let me just, as you mentioned, Brooklyn, New York, and the United States. In Brooklyn right now, I have some items in a lady's basement. She's very graceful. I can't be mad at her. She needs to fix up her basement, and I have to get the stuff out immediately. And I'm looking for a place where I could store them until I'm able to ship them. So if anybody listening who is anywhere in the Brooklyn area who can offer up a garage, a basement, I don't know, storage, whatever it is, I'm grateful. Reach me at 917-676-2634, and we are truly grateful to all those of you who have made contributions so far to the efforts and continue to do so. I have several people, I have the names and what have you, but I'm not going to take the time now but continue to help us. If you have a basement or a garage and we could put some stuff in there for the time being, for a brief moment, we do appreciate that as well. Thank you so very much, George.
3 comments just came in here, and I got to share them. First of all, Clive Baker, and this amazes me. Clive says, Uncle George, I wonder how many people listen to your radio show. I don't give a hoot, Clive. It's there. And those who don't listen, it speaks volumes about them. They flock to the TV and the scandal. We're trying to help people. We're trying to save lives. Those who aren't interested, their business. Thank you. Anthony DeRigg says, some of those in authority prefer to hand out money to people in rum shops to secure votes than to give to the homes that you mentioned. See what I mean, John? You stirred them up. And your good friend, Margaret, says, "Aww, big hug."
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, really?
Okay, I'm coming from a hug. I'm coming from a hug. I want me hug. I'm coming from a hug.
Nutris Williams says, I listen and enjoy. Thank you, Nutris. God bless you. And God bless those of you who take the time to spend a few minutes with us. Selflessly. John, okay, we got to go. All right? Safe trip. When are you leaving?
Sometime this weekend, I think.
Sometime this week. He doesn't even know when he's leaving. Alrighty, folks. There he is, Johncrow. Now, a lot of you have been asking me to up the audio on that. That's a recording that was done on Friday. Terribly sorry I was not able to help you with that. My apologies. My apologies. Now, my next guest has arrived. I'm just going to let you take a peek at him before he says good morning. Take a look. Wave, Stephen. Yeah. Dr. Stephen Fletcher. It's been years since the guy has last been in here with me. But anyhow, he is back. And I see a lot of comments there from you guys, but because I've already kept Stephen waiting 19 minutes, I'm not going to waste any more time. So let's take a quick little break here, and we will return with Dr. Stephen Fletcher.
Inspection and licensing have begun, and at Hubbard's, we want you to be ready. From January to February 15th, we're offering vehicle owners with single registration letters 1 to 2,500 and plural registration letters 1 to 250, 10% off our new torque tires and Power Max batteries. Don't get caught unprepared. Visit us today at our motor department in Mungay or our tire bay in Grandance, located near Hubbard's Building Supplies.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Co-op Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank. And there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home.
Together with you, our customers, we energize our community.
Together with you, we energize our economy.
We are working together to give our nation a better tomorrow.
With you, we energize our future. Together, we energize our nation.
Thank you for partnering with us
as we energize our Speyside.
Renlec, energizing our Grenada.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try their sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Alrighty, folks. Yes, sirree. Time now to talk. Boy, the first thing I'm going to ask this guy to do is describe this digital currency, cryptocurrency, cashless society, all one and the same? We're going to find out from Stephen in just a minute. Anyhow, Dr. Stephen Fletcher is a researcher on alternative currencies, international trade, and development finance. So if anybody should know about this stuff, that's the man. That's the reason why when I started putting together this program, he was the person who came most highly recommended. Dr. Fletcher, let me say not only a good morning to you, but also a happy new year. How are you, sir?
Thank you very much, George, for inviting me here. I am good, I think. I hope I am in excellent shape.
It's been a long time, Stephen.
It's been a long time, George. I've been here long before you did this major renovations and all of that. So it's been a long time since I've been here. Yeah. And let me quickly say good morning to all of your viewers, the listeners, your people on social media and so on, and to wish everyone a successful 2020.
Yeah.
It's a year in when we should have clear vision, right? So I wish everyone well, and whatever you wish yourself, which is positive and good and all of that, I want to encourage you to try to achieve those.
Stephen, let me tell you how this came about. Somebody sent me an email the other day telling me that I should have a discussion about the cashless society.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming.
It is.
It's here. Okay. Mm-hmm. Stephen, I want you, we're hearing so many things. It's so many different names being given to this thing. Cashless society, cryptocurrency, I think Bitcoin is in there somewhere. Yeah. Stephen, shed some light. In layman's terms, so that a beanhead like me could understand what you're talking about. Explain to me, what is this cashless society?
And where we're heading in that regard.
Yeah.
George, it is complicated but yet simple to understand. And during the next probably 40 or so minutes we have, I will try to dissect it, right, as much as possible so that we bring some understanding to this. So I want to talk this morning and to share really some critical information regarding issues of the development of this digital currencies, how it come about, secondly, to look at some of the specific drivers of digital currencies that is also referred to as cryptocurrencies, as digital wallets and so on and so forth. We want to look at what are the growth, what is driving the growth in those areas. And finally, I really want to spend some time looking at what's happening within our region, our OECS region, and in particular, what is happening with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank digital project, right? Because that is one that is closest to us and that we need to have a very good understanding of. So I hope to bring that to it. Now, I have been researching this issue for quite some while, George, and in fact, between September and December of this year, I held 2 public forums on digital currencies, right? One was held in St. George's, the other in Grenville. So it is an issue that is critical. Now, just to start off by answering the question that you asked and not leaving it for later, although I'm going to come back to it later. George, the development of digital currencies is inevitable. The development of cashless societies I don't believe for the next 30 or so years we'll achieve a cashless society. But what we are going to achieve is a reduction in the use of cash and the increase in the use of digital currencies, whether we want to call it cryptocurrencies or whether we're going to have our central bank digital currency to exist along the fiat currency or current paper money and so forth. It is going to happen. So when we talk about digital currency, what we are talking about is the use of non-paper money, non-coins in conducting transactions.
You mean all them Parliament notes gone?
All the Parliament notes, well, in our system, in our region, I do not see all of it disappearing, frankly. It is a wish, but it has to be matched by the development of economy. But critically, what is driving that, George, is the use of internet business. You see, if you look back at money and how money develops, it always has to do with the level of development of the societies and the world, and more so trading. What are we going to use to facilitate trade? So many years ago, if we were to go back a little bit, we traded goods for goods. We're involved in bartering, right? I have peas, you have yam, you give me some peas, I give you some yam, and so on. And that was something that developed into global space. In fact, it is now coming back. There is a website, I can't remember the name right now, that basically involved in bartering. It's a bartering website. So society now has developed to the point, George, where the internet has consumed our lives. The internet is the main driver of economics, the main driver of businesses. If you pay attention to what's happening, even in Grenada here and globally, there is a growth trajectory in persons purchasing via the internet. Now, if the form of purchasing and distribution has changed, so now where we go onto our computers, we access a website and we place an order. We pay for that good and service by use of credit cards. We don't take cash and push it in a hole in the phone or in the computer and it goes to the other side. The medium that we use, is the medium of exchange, which is one of the definition of monies, is that of the credit cards or a debit card that we use. Now, this carries a cost. The use of credit cards and so carries a cost. So there are persons in the world that is shaping our world, that is shaping the way internet business rather is conducted on the internet. There are persons that are thinking, there are thinkers, practitioners in the field who are saying, you know what, let us find a way to reduce that cost of doing business. Why should we be paying third parties for products that we are buying that they are not really contributing towards? Why should we be paying them? When you receive MoneyGram, for example, or when you send out a MoneyGram or Western Union, there are costs associated with that. So persons are saying, let us find a medium, another medium, that can facilitate the payment of internet transactions. So if the world is digital, by means of the use of the internet to conduct cross-border trades and so on, we must find the appropriate payment mechanism. And that payment mechanism that we are now evolved into is what is called digital currencies. So what it means is that we are no longer going to be walking around with tons of cash in our pockets to make payments. Our bank accounts will probably evolve to the point where we have some cash, but we have some converted into digitization, into digital money. So when we talk about that, we're talking, for example, of carrying a wallet that has digital tokens in them. It's stored on our computer or our phones or somewhere, and that market is still growing. It is not well defined, right? So, George, we are at the point where these digital currencies, and so we are talking about, is redefining our payment systems as we know it, because the payment systems will have to change. Our payment infrastructure, financial infrastructure in terms of our banks, and in particular, I want to put up front here the role of the central banks. What role central banks will be playing in the future if we were to go the digital route. So this is what's happening, and this is where we are in terms of the digital currencies and the use of that, which, as I point out, really is underlined by the growth of internet businesses and finding a medium to make those payments, to match the internet business. So when we moved from bartering, for example, and we needed more goods and services that we can barter, and we started domestically having to purchase other things that we couldn't barter, we needed money, right? When slavery started and it was at height, people needed monies to pay. And therefore, we had the evolution of money. And in, just a reference here, in some articles that I'm running in one of the newspapers, I am detailing some of those developments of the money evolution and so on. But critically, George, how did we get to this digital issue, digital money, and so on, and what is driving it, and what's been driving it? So let me lay out 6 critical issues here that has driven these digital or cryptocurrencies. By way of definition as well, George, let me say this. The term cryptocurrency is also used. And the best known example of that cryptocurrency is Bitcoin. But we have about 1,000 of those around now. Over 1,000. Right. My research here. We have Earthmos, we have a whole heap of those. But Bitcoin is the most known, well known of all those currencies that we are talking about. So when we talk about crypto comes from the word, a Greek word. Rather than the use of the C, it's spelled with a K. So K-R-Y-P-T-O. And crypto really means secrets, secretive, and so on. So you have a crypto this or a crypto that, and so on. Good or bad? And so for creepy, I know. The good part of it, which I will take, is the part that the crypto here means that we are using a technology, an encryption technology, to provide digital currencies that is safe and secure, at least for now. They tell us it is safe and secure. So these currencies this technology was developed and really did not, so this encryption thing has always been there. It's been there with the growth of computerization, and you need to make transactions across the internet more secured. But we are now leveraging it in a different way, or not differently. We are adding to the way that we use this encryption technology to create currencies now. And probably that's where it's come. So what are the key drivers, Judge?
Before you go to the key drivers, you mentioned the word secure. The internet was supposedly secure at one time.
Yes. And that's why I said secure for now.
Okay.
Because there's always somebody that's going to be. In fact, George, you're right to raise this, and it's a critical issue because the issue of security continues to boggle the blockchain world and the cryptocurrency world. Because one of the things that had contributed to the collapse in the price of Bitcoin when it reached the $10,000 mark and so on, was it is reported that scam and fraud started to take place. Somebody found a way to get into the system and so on. That has been worked upon to make it a much more secure environment, right? So the ecosystem for the development of these digital currencies is on the improvement, and it will, because let me put another thing here before I talk to drivers, George, so that people will understand when I finish what we're really talking about. At the end of the day, George, mark my word, you and I may not see it. We are leading to a one world currency. That's fundamentally where we are heading. This digitization of money is leading to a one world currency. And hopefully by the end, or I may have to come back to explain why we're going to get there. But what is driving this thing, George? Why we are where we are, and why our Eastern Caribbean Central Bank is in that mix, as many other central banks around the world. George, this started marvelously with globalization. As we know, from the time the world started, and trade and commerce started, we have been integrating our economies. And that's what fundamentally globalization is all about. The integration of economies through trade and commerce and movements of people. So that has been happening, and that has been evolving over time. The second critical factor that has gotten us where we are is the internet, and more so the Internet of Things. If we recall the history of the internet, it fundamentally started within the US military complex, People developed ways of transferring information between themselves in NATO and so on, and keeping things secret. Okay, but it became open to society, to civilian use, when we were able to develop the World Wide Web, which is the WWW. Okay, when we developed that, it became open and we started to use it. And then that changed our world. It had a bombastic effect, a significant earth-shattering effect on all that we do. Check on our lives today. Literally, to exist in this world at a certain level, you must have an internet account. You have to have access to the internet. You couldn't broadcast this program today without the internet. So we have the Internet of Things. The way we work, the way we play, the way we conduct businesses has been earth-shattering. So what the internet has done for most of mankind now is to provide a medium for trade. The third factor I would say that has driven this thing, is driving us into this new space, is the issue of the human desire for self-governance and self-regulation, and the removal of authorities and middlemen over some of us. George, believe it or not, one of the fundamental drivers of this digital currency and the digitization of the world is that there are groups of persons who really think, we need less of government. We need less monetary authorities over our monies and our resources. We want to be independent. We want to be able to do things where we are. And let me make this point here. Associated with this self-development and removing authorities and so on, that's where the cryptocurrencies came in. Cryptocurrencies are not driven by governments. It is not driven by central bank authorities. It is driven by private individuals. Private businesses are the ones that are driving digital monies right now. All of the digital currencies that are in the global market space, all of the digital currencies that have been traded generally driven by private businesses. They are only Venezuela has recently come out with the Petro, which is the digital currency. And the People's Republic of China is on the verge. In fact, this morning, in following up what's happening in the global market space on that, they're on the verge of announcing that they're going full-blown. In fact, they've identified 2 cities already where the test of this digital currency is going to take place. So this desire by human beings and so on that drives this, right? So the people who are behind the Bitcoin and so on, these are private companies, private individuals. The fourth factor is...
Hold on. Somebody here is asking this question, and I'm bringing it up because of what you just said. Do cryptocurrencies belong to the following money supply chain, namely MO, M1, M2, or M3? What the heck are these M's?
Right. These M's are basically academic definitions that are used to define various forms of money. So, for example, money has many forms. So one of it is cash, to simplify it. Then we have cash and checks and other things and so on, right? But the main money supply is what is called M1 and M2, which is money supply.
Do cryptocurrencies belong to those supply chains?
No. This is part of the challenge that we have right now, the person asking the question, because these are private monies. One of the challenges that the world is faced with, and central bank authorities, and by the way, this is why central bank authorities are now gearing up and rushing to get into that M1, M or M3 space, because the fear is that these cryptocurrencies do not belong to them. In fact, in some countries, they are banned. They are banned. You cannot conduct business with them. Secondly, it's important to note that these cryptocurrencies are still finding their space. They are not accepted in the broad business community as monies per se or a form of exchange. Because remember, when we define money, which I was going to come to, but let me do it now. Monies carry 3 fundamental characteristics. One, it is a means of exchange. Secondly, it is a store of value. We count our value by our money supplies and so on. And it's used for conducting transactions. Now, it is not part of that mainstream money flow. And part of the fear that central banks have and government is that if it becomes widely used to conduct business, firstly, how do you track it? So we don't know, as we know now, what is called in the fiat money stream, what is the volume of money in the economy, and what is the volume that is being transacted? Because it is not accounted for. It is not accounted for. Because a lot of these currency exchanges that take place in the confine of communities, electronic communities, right? So that Bitcoin, for example, is still conducted by and large within electronic communities by people who are called miners and so on. But it is beginning to open up where more and more companies are beginning to accept it as a form of exchange. But in many countries it's not. The US has made some significant moves recently where some of the states and the federal government is in fact considering taxing it as a wealth, as a store of wealth. So it is considered not as a form of exchange, but as a store of wealth, right? Because you accumulate wealth. I mean, for example, I ran into some numbers this morning that there is a gentleman who swapped in 2009, he swapped 10,000 Bitcoins for 2 pizzas. Now, if he kept that 10,000 Bitcoins today, those 10,000 Bitcoins would have been valued as $100 million.
Excuse me?
Right? So it is a form of exchange. Because one of the things that drove the crypto market as well is the issue of the establishment of markets, of trading houses, electronic trading houses to trade in these currencies, where people are buying them and they're seen as a store of wealth, right? So because the values go up and down. I mean, Bitcoin is I haven't checked the level at which it is trading at this morning, but up to a couple of days ago, it was trading at over $8,000 per Bitcoin, right? So it's very expensive. And that's where more and more countries are now beginning to open up to cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. So it is eventually likely to get into the money supply. But the question is really, is it part of the formal money supply? At the moment, it is not. In most countries around the world, it's served between communities.
All right.
Right?
I know you want to get to drivers.
No, we can go into that.
Okay. I got 2 comments here which seem to go hand in hand. Somebody here's renewed purpose says, more people will gravitate to dark web because our governments and business cannot be trusted without private information. Microsoft and Google all sell information to make money, especially to telemarketers. Somebody else here says, 70% of people don't realize that free apps use their data to make money, and banks and other financial companies benefit from informational power over customers.
George, this is another critical issue. So let's take this a bit. Let me respond to this. The issue, as you say, they are in fact connected. And the issue is how our data is used and the value that is placed on our data. George, I think one of the things global consumers is witnessing is data colonialism.
Data colonialism.
Yeah. Where we have our data, we do not own it, but others take it and use it to make money, right? So we get online, we put in our data, and that data becomes marketable. Marketable not just barely by the ability to sell, to exchange it, but there's a value on it. And you as a consumer, you and the person providing that information, you do not benefit from that value that your data has been transacted for. You don't have any space in it. So telephone companies, electricity companies, banks, and so on, the Google social media of this world, our data is pooled and it's been transacted, but we are not part of that transaction. Now, I think that my prediction is that our governments, to the question and so, and the powers that be, but it must be also rest with the people. The people must become the drivers of these things. The cryptocurrency world, social media is growing, and so not because of governments, but despite of government. They are growing because the private sector and people are using those things. And the people are the drivers of that change. So the people now is beginning to say, you know what? I am putting a value on my data, right? So Amazon and Facebook and so on, right? We must negotiate a value for our data that we are putting out there. And that is probably where we need to push our governments to begin to really think ahead and to see how we can, in fact, obtain monies for our data. So let us say in Grenada context, you have 5,000 users of Facebook, right? Can we put a value on that data?
Okay.
Right? And can we obtain some money for it? So it is critical, and it is part of this digitized world that we are living in. And let me just add here to the persons asking the questions. This is where governments and so beginning to fear Facebook, the power of Facebook. Facebook has emerged as one of the most powerful forces in this world, even over and above that of government. So with all this data that Facebook has on millions of customers, they decided recently to launch Libra, which is their digital currency. You know what it means for the person who asks the question about the money supply, M1 and M2 and M3? George, Libra begin to be transacted around the world. It will probably be more than the flow of any of the major world currencies in circulation today. And that will shift the world economies and so on. It will provide a distortion. Because, George, what we're fundamentally witnessing at this stage in the world is major disruptions that are taking place, driven by technology. Everything has been disrupted. What we held things as true today, tomorrow morning you wake up and it's no longer true because it has changed fundamentally. As money is changing before very eyes. And that is what is driving, it becomes a driving force behind the development of these cryptocurrencies and so on, and these digital currencies, and the involvement now of central banks. That's where central banks and so are beginning to get worried, and they're beginning to step in. They no longer could be armchair onlookers.
Margaret Francis says, excellent point about negotiation and compensation for use of our data. Just as banks pay interest for use of your money, so should companies like Facebook, Google, and so on. Right?
Absolutely. That is the point, Margaret. And this is where we need to keep our eyes on the ball, and we need to be focused on what we did. You know, Facebook resources can, I mean, it's unimaginable the amount of monies that these companies are generating. But they're generating quite a lot of it from our data that we provide about ourselves. Our age, our name, our address, our gender, our health issues, what we are buying. Simple thing, George. You purchase something on the internet, or you may not even purchase. You preview a book or some item. The next time you go back to access your computer, you're getting something which says, these are the other books or things that persons also purchase. So you buy a book on, let's see, John James. Yes, but here a list also. They're able to go behind the scenes and mine that data, dig into that data, analyze that data, right? And a lot of it is now using artificial intelligence and saying to us, this is what others are doing, similar to you. So it's encouraged for us to do the same thing. And we build communities and we build networks along that way.
Well, somebody else here is saying Europe's central bankers are warning that a gradual phase out of cash in many countries poses a serious threat to the financial system, as relying too heavily on digital payment systems exposes them to catastrophic failures in the event of cyber attacks.
Yeah, absolutely. That is one of the downsides that ought to be faced. Because, George, you know, one of the things, despite all the talk about security and so on, we have to also understand the parallels between the fiat money, the money that we now uses, and its openness to scams and thieves and so on, to the digital currencies, which also have its weaknesses, which can also be open to some of those things that have been mentioned. So there are some central banks that are very concerned, very worried. In fact, the banks of all central banks, which is the Bank of International Settlements, and the general manager there, has been expressing caution, have been cautioning other central banks about the pace and speed in which they get into digital currencies, because it can lead to catastrophic effect. So, for example, one of the challenges that any bank and system and a central bank is going to have as they move into this digital space, which they must move into. It's not, there's no pulling back right now on it. It might be delayed, but it must happen. The question is how much, what percentage or proportion of your reserves you're going to hold in digital currencies, and what proportion you're going to hold in the old fiat currencies. Now, it's going to take a while for these transitions to take place. It's not going to happen overnight. Probably 20, 30 years from now, we're going to see an increasing merger of these things taking place. In fact, the governor of the the European Central Bank, Ms. Lagarde, who has just left the IMF, as head of the IMF, she has been encouraging digitization. She has been, to an extent, encouraging central banks, global digital currencies, but she's also expressing caution about the pace in which it is done, how it is done, getting it right, because it can lead to catastrophic effect in the global financial market space.
Well, this person seems to agree. He says here, regulators are also weighing in to say that IT failures, systemic hacking risks, and the fact that more vulnerable members of society would be alienated in a cashless world, all argue in favor of keeping a robust system in place. Cash.
Absolutely. That is going to be the argument for a while, George, right? Now, let us talk a little bit about our own situation in the ECCU area. And this person, how do you call your followers again, George? Pilgrims? This pilgrim has in fact raised a very important question here. The issue of regulation, but also the issue of what I term those that will be left behind, this digital issue. Now, some central bankers have argued that one of the reasons we must go this digital route is for inclusion purposes, meaning that persons who otherwise did not have the opportunity or was not able to open a bank account, by some magical means, they will be able to have these digital wallets, and they will be pulled into, secondly, they'll be pulled into these mainstream economies that we have. At this point in time, I do have some concerns about this and still have an alternative opinion, because the digitization by itself, in my view, does not necessarily lead to massive economic development. It does not lead to a guy who does not have a job and cannot earn value for his labor, is immediately earning value, and therefore that value is transmitted into digitization. So in the same way that we had the gulf in the internet space, the haves and the have not, the gulf in the computerization period, because some countries are more computerized than the others. Some countries have a deeper level of internet penetration than others. Even in Grenada, George, we have a division between those of us who continue to have access to internet and those who doesn't. So the digitization project and this digital currencies are not a panacea for solving some of the fundamental economic problems that faces us, that confronts us, especially, I dare say, in small economies like ours, countries that are still suffering from internet poverty, computerization poverty, and so on. These are not magic tools that are going to make our economies any better. It does not, the digitization of currencies does not in any way remove the need, and the absolute need, may I say, for serious economic thinking, for the implementation of prudent economic growth policies, for the implementation of proper employment policies and the protection of the labor market in our societies and so on. In other words, George, our ability really to access this digital world despite the fact it's growing, despite the fact that more and more Grenadians, I meet young people and so on, are making purchases via the internet, and that internet sales are growing and growing every month and every year and so on, I will say that in economies like ours, we still have fundamental work to do on the basics of our society, on the fundamental pillars of economic growth and development that would lead to a wealthier society, a more informed society, and people have a quality of our people, of a human talent or human capital that would be able to participate in this global world that we are talking about.
Essentially, Stephen, you're saying it's going to be a long time before this becomes mainstream.
I would argue that. I would take a while before
30 years
mainstream.
earlier.
Before the 30 years is for the one currency, one world currency.
Okay.
Right? I think, but within our space, because, you know, George, one of the things that give money the space in our society is trust and confidence. Trust and confidence. Can we trust? You know, it's like, for example, George, let's look at this typical example. The banks and credit unions have come up with these technologies, ATM machines and so on, with the hope, really, that they're going to reduce the lines inside of the banks. Have that really been happening? Go to the credit unions and go to the banks.
Tell me about it.
Exactly. We're still having long lines. And you know what is pushing that? Trust. I want to see whom I'm dealing with. I want to feel my money, right? I want to go there and stand as long as it's going to take. Yes, I may also, alongside going to the bank and standing and doing these physical transactions, I may also do some stuff on the internet. I may pay some bills on the internet and so on. But people still, and this is where trust is, George, the ability to see another human being, to see a fellow human being, know what you're like, know what I'm talking about. So the evolution of the digital currencies is about trust, and trust leads to acceptance. And that is going to take a while. We have to have the demonstration effect of this issue.
There's a statement here from somebody who recognizes that we're embarking on a rather long process. And he's saying here that there are a number of things that need to be taken into consideration. He said, one is surveillance by companies, and the other by the state. Anyone in an abusive relationship who may lose financial independence without access to cash. He says people with physical or mental health problems who find using digital services difficult. You agree with that?
Absolutely.
He says it is also a society where your participation in the economy is limited by approval for a bank account or a cell phone plan. I'm in favor of the added convenience of digital payment channels, but not to the point of a totally cashless society. Like many other pieces of tech, what's healthy in small doses turns destructive without a check.
Well said, well articulated. That's one of my views, George. And let us fast track on the cashless society a bit. Remember, 20 years ago, the big hype in the tech world was the paperless office. We are supposed to be using less people, significantly less, and we're supposed to be running paperless offices. I think today some offices are using more paper than is going to reside. And I think this is one of the things about, if I may comment on the ECCB's digital pilot project. One of the things about it, it seems to be an express view of the ECCB that the digital currency that's been proposed for the Eastern Caribbean area will exist alongside the fiat currency, right? It will exist alongside our paper money, right? So that is good in terms of the thinking of the ECCB and where we are going with that, because it will be here for a long time. But what is inevitable is the use of the evolution to a one world currency. And because at the end of the day, George, we have private digital currencies, and we are going to have public digital currencies. Okay? They're going to be an accommodation at some point. Somebody said, too much of these digital currencies floating around. Let us have one. Let us denote values in one. And this is where the disruptive technology is coming. It's going to change everything. It's going to change how we define money. It's going to change how we define international trade and all these things and so on, right? The issues of the values of currencies and exchange rates that we tend to lose so much on, right? You buy something at one price, and by the time you go to pay for it and so on, the exchange rate increases, or you budget for something at one price. When you go to make the purchase, it increased, your cost increased along with that, right? So there is going to be a time and a place when private money and public money will talk to each other and come to a settlement.
Stephen, you realize you got your hands really full, because you're going to have a key role to play in explaining all this stuff. I mean, you just scratched the surface this morning, okay? You mentioned earlier on that you recently put on a couple of fora.
Yes.
How often do you do this type of thing?
Well, basically, George, I have this consultancy, and we started 2 years ago. One, taking a topic and providing public education. It's part of our thing to provide public education to people. And in that regard, we get sponsors from the private sector to do it. So last year, before 2018, we had some discussions on the nutmeg industry, and we went to 4 parishes around the country to do that. This year, we had 2 discussions, one in St. George, one in Grenville, on digital currencies. It's a work in progress. We still have to get the private sector and businesses to talk about it, to be part of that public dialogue. We have to get government personnel to be involved in this and to be around the table. Because, George, one of my fears is that these things are unfolding, and the vast majority of our people are sitting and folding their arms. Even institutions that should be involved, the banks, the credit unions, the insurance company, businesses that are involved in trade. I am not satisfied, if you may ask the question, about the rate of involvement of our people in this space. That is going to affect them. The banks, for example. I mean, you attempt to hold forums and so on, and right, participation from key institutions, right, trading houses, GCNA, nutmeg. And we have not even touched on the issue of this blockchain yet and what it means, because all these currencies are built on the technology of blockchain and what it means for businesses and how it will impact on the way we store information, the way we build trust, because that's going to be one of the issues that blockchain is going to deal with. When we put something on the blockchain, that there is agreement that, yeah, so I went to the bank with X amount, I deposit X amount in my account, it's registered into this blockchain. When I go back, I cannot be told, no, it wasn't 10,000 you put, it's 8,500, right? So we'll develop this common understanding and build trust. And fundamentally, George, this is what we have to do. In this economic space is where the citizenry and the businesses in particular and the consumers are required to be active participants, to ask the hard questions, to know what is going on. So, for example, George, a question that I have raised with the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, our own Grenadian, Governor Antwine, is what then would be the role? Because people are asking those questions. Therefore, what will be the role of the central bank? If we said that by adopting these digital currencies, we are aiming, among other things, to reduce the cost of transactions and to remove the middleman. And there is a direct and inverse relationship between the middleman and cost. Once you involve a middleman, cost is going to be involved. So if I still have to go to the bank or the credit union and convert some of my cash money into digital currencies, there is going to be a cost. I'm sure the institution is going to charge me something for it. Well, why can I not have an account with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank? Why cannot the central bank become a retailer's bank as well, where I deposit my money into the central bank and I get my digital currency, therefore removing the middleman and reducing my cost?
You're absolutely right, Stephen. They're going to be firing a lot of questions at you. You know, a little over a month ago, we began a program called Fiscal Alert. I don't know if you know this lady, Laurel Bain. She used to be an economist with the ECCB. She and her sister, Gemma Bain, former cabinet secretary, and her other sister, who's a medical doctor, they do this program every Monday morning right here. It's called Fiscal Alert. And they're trying to help Grenada get a better grasp on fiscal policies and management of finances and stuff like that. And I see room for you. I'm putting you on the spot now. Anytime that you have the time on your hands to come and sit here, we will give you an hour or whatever, because I think it's important that Grenadians start preparing. And you're going to need all the help you can get. And we may be able to give you some. When you get home today, take a look at some of the comments. Well, all of the comments on Facebook. Right. They're asking questions already, Stephen, and you ain't start yet. Okay? Before we go, I want to share a few with you. There's somebody named Bob Marichaux here. He's asking, who are the owners of the ECC Bank and St. Kitts? Which country manufactures our fancy notes in Grenada? The sad reality, as I see it, is that the center of economic gravity would shift from the west to the east. That is, China, Russia, and so on. What does that portend for the Caribbean? Ms. Lagarde knows Grenada. I think she went there in the past. He says, "Oh, Grenada, please do your best to recall some of your best and brightest which reside abroad. Please, they can help you in your current dilemma." Well, Bob, we got him back here. He's now anchored in Grenada. This man used what? He was assigned to China years ago. He was also the ambassador to the European Union. He's been around the block. And Bob also says, John, Dr. Fletcher talked about internet penetration and its relationship to development. What is the percentage in Grenada? If I were to hazard a guess, I would say 15%. It is much, much higher in Barbados. Hold on. Danny Levio says, my, thank you, George and Stephen, for a world of information. You see, they're listening to you, Stephen. Some parting comments before you go, and tell me whether or not you can take up my challenge.
Right. First, George, I will take up your challenge. I will come. I mean, as you know, the media of this type, I am not so, I have not such affinity to it, but given the challenge, I will.
We'll get you
used
sorted out. We'll get you
Thank you, George. You have my contact details. Just let me know when you need me. The other point that I want to make, which is very important, is that these initiatives I've undertaken is on my own, right? I'm not a representative of the ECCB. So questions that are related with what ECCB is doing internally, I cannot answer that, but I can discern from what is in the public space. I can make my analysis from that. So for example, the drivers for the ECCB on the East Caribbean Central Bank digital currencies, a lot of information in the public space. And I must also say here that when I held the first public forum, called high-level forum on digital currencies, they were kind enough to send 2 representatives from the CCB came and really explain the project and what it's all about. And that was really, really good. There's also a lot of stuff on the internet. So I know that I have some information that I'm able to make my own assessment and evaluation from. So I'm not representing ECCB. I'm not a representative of them in any way. It is my consultancy work. Secondly, to some of the questions that have been raised by the last emailer that you mentioned regarding to Lagarde and so on, and what's been happening, there's a lot of action taking place. It's a new area. The Caribbean, the region, we need to get our best brains behind the development, not just digital currency, George, but our very future, our very economic development. And I know there is a lot of talk generally about in the public, from a public policy point of view, about Grenadians returning home and serving country and so on. there is another part of that formula that we need to work on. We must not just say it. We must not just announce it in public fora and as part of a policy on diaspora and so on. We must walk the walk. And what does walk the walk means? It means removing hurdles, right? Remove the hurdles that are put in place, some of them deliberately, to prevent some Grenadians who are well-informed, who has the intelligence and the skill sets and the experience to do things. Remove the hurdles from getting them to it. Remove the social biases that is an impediment to people's participation in the development of this country. Remove the personal biases that exist, right? That is preventing some of our best talents from residing out there and not contributing. But even in today's world, George, you don't need to come back here physically to get things done. If we use the internet and the powers that be, provide the environment to allow people, regardless of political orientation, social means, personalities, and so on, all the things that we use today to prevent Grenadians from actively participating in our country's development, we need to cast that aside if this country is to go forward. The other point I want to refer to is the question on internet penetration.
Hold on, you sound like a guy who was sitting in that chair on Friday, a guy named Johncrow Alexander. I ran a piece by him this morning. You sound just like him. Anyhow, go ahead.
Okay, it means many of us share the same views.
Yeah.
Right. So the other point regarding internet penetration, that is something that we need to look into, George. Because we might be making decisions on internet use and so on in this country in a blindsided way. There is a saying that the noise in the market is not the sale of the fish. I know some people believe that we have high level of penetration of internet services. I am really not convinced that it is as high as some people are saying. Now, when we walk around in certain communities and so on, we see people on what we believe are smartphones. We're not sure, but we're saying smartphones. The internet companies might give you data on the number of internet accounts that they have. But we need to drill into that kind of data much deeper to validate some of the information that is out there. And I believe really that the person who indicated that it's about 15 to 20%, it might just be that. But I'm hearing in some spaces that it's very high. So I'm not sure. But the other critical things that we need to do, George, in terms of parting on these issues, we need to continue to have national discussions on these issues. And the institutions and organizations and powers that be who will influence our world and our development, of which the digital currency is part of. The digital currency is not our world. Our world is beyond that. But it's part of our world. So persons, the banks, the credit unions, the telephone companies, and most of the regulators, right? The NTRC, they need to get involved and understand what is taking place, George. The electricity companies. Because, George, the more we get into these cryptocurrencies, the more electricity will be required by miners, what is called miners, people that, for example, if you get into Bitcoin and you get into being a miner, not just a trader, it consumes a whole lot of electricity. Countries have to reconfigure their electricity grids for that purpose. Yet you find some of these companies are not even willing to listen, to pay attention, to be part of that dialogue. The NTRC has a role to play, the internet company providers. We need stable and consistent internet services. You cannot be doing these transactions and internet going off on you and electricity going off and so on. It needs to be consistent. We need the bandwidth. We need the bandwidth to make it happen. Who are the persons that are looking at all of this nationally to make sure that we are prepared? Not just for digital currency, but for the world ahead of us. We must grow this country. This country must develop citizens, individuals in this country must be allowed to be what they want to be. And therefore, In today's world, it is the Internet of Things that are taking us there. We have to be part of that. And the powers that be, the institutions must it. And let me hasten to add this. We sometimes put a lot of the responsibilities and blame on government and point to government. Yes, there are times when they have to face it. And they are responsible for setting the national environment. They are responsible for giving national directions on things. But you know what? There are some quasi-government institutions in this country. There are some private sector organizations that need to take the lead, right? And stop pointing fingers, fingering others and so on, and being afraid of change.
Pussyfooting around.
Yeah. We need to be the change. We need to be the change. And I will do my bit by providing education to the public, by meeting with institutions and organizations that want to talk about this some more, while I'm continuing to develop my research skills in that area, acquire information, and apply it and put the information out in public space for our people.
Stephen, the folks out there who are listening to you right now, and I, welcome you, and we're making this facility open to you to help you educate us. I say us, every one of us. Huh?
I just want to add one more comment, George, before I leave, because I think we are winding up now.
Yeah, we're winding up, and I have one special comment sitting here for you, but go ahead, you go first.
One of the issues I need to raise, George, and you would have been really remiss of me not to do it. Now, Grenadians and people of the Eastern Caribbean, Grenada and the diaspora, Grenadians here, we need to pay increasing attention and become more active in what's happening in our financial market space. We are seeing changes occurring in our financial landscape by virtue of changes in ownership of financial organizations. The sale of banks are taking place, Republic, and so on and so forth. There are significant changes that are occurring. We also have changes we have witnessed over time, the issue of negative listing by the OECD on our countries and the implications of that. These are fundamental implications for the future of our country. Judge, one of the reasons I support the Eastern Caribbean Union Digital Currency Project is because I see it as a response to some of these changes that are taking place in our financial space that we have no control over. When Republic Bank and so decide and CIBC decide to sell their shares and to change owners, we seem to exercise very little control over it. We need to defend our financial space. We need to have our credit unions and our indigenous banks matching up, and I will say here, I've always proposed behind closed doors, we need to find some space for a cooperative bank, our only local bank, owned bank, with our massively growing credit union sector, to find a way to create the institutional arrangement to defend our financial space in this country. Things are happening. Movements are taking place, right? We've been, the new term now is de-risking, which is what some of these banks are using to get out of the region. And this is something I would have liked to talk about. I'll come back to talk about
Anytime.
it because I think it's really key and it goes to the crux of our future. But many of our organizations, our private sector and so on, we fold our arms and we're remaining quiet. We are remaining quiet, right? We need to understand this chess game that is happening. Why banks will close their doors and so on, and we just fold our arms and we become almost sheepish. And there is no real public response and outcry on this matter, right? Banks are changing ownership up and down the region. What does that mean for us? What are the implications for foreign exchange reserves for Grenada? And where does it go? How many financial institutions we have in this country that is headquartered in Grenada, right? And therefore the monies remain and circulate. It goes to the shareholders, the major shareholders. And therefore the role of our credit unions, critical, very, very important in this economic space.
Mobilize them.
Right? We need to, there is the league, and I see the league is doing a pretty good job at getting things in shape and so on. We need to do it, George. This country, this region is at a critical junction in its development. We can either go forward and achieve great things for our nation. We can end up in a stalemate situation, or we can decline, right? Those persons who have an influence in the economic space, because it's not always about politics per se. The politics eventually defines the environment, but the economies, the companies, the private sector, right, have a role to play, and we must not continue to bend our heads in that regard.
Yeah.
We have a contribution to make, and we must step up. We must make it. We must let our voices be heard. We must create the landscape for people's development. When people develop, business develop. We need to ensure that that happens, right? And we need to get on top of our game, understand what's happening, the jigsaw puzzle, and be part of it. George, I want to thank you very much for inviting me to be here this morning. I want to thank your participants, those persons who made questions, who logged in, asked questions, and so on. I want to thank them for at least listening and to be part of this program.
Stephen, you've left me pretty speechless here this morning. You know, now I know what I'm going to do for the rest of the afternoon. Think about this conversation we've had this morning. Thank you, sir. Come again.
Thank you very much.
And I'm going to be up your tail like a tick.
Please
okay?
do.
I just want to share 3 comments that have come in while you were giving your last little dissertation there. A lady by the name of Cassandra, I can't think of any better way to wrap up the segment this morning. A lady by the name of Cassandra Mitchell says, "Thank you, Dr. Fletcher. Best wishes for 2020. Looking forward to our next meeting." Okay? A lady by the name of Margaret Francis in New York, and this one is going to have you walking out of here on a cloud. Margaret says, "Good information, Doc. Easy and understandable." And that's where a lot of the problem lies. You know, there are a lot of very knowledgeable people out there about the technical stuff that you're talking about, but they come and dump their technical stuff on the Grenadian people. The Grenadian people ain't no diddly squat what they're talking about. When you talk, people like me understand. Let me put it this way. According to Margaret, here's what she says. Easy and understandable, especially for finance and economic dunderheads like me. Stephen, tell me, where's a dunderhead?
I know Margaret will have to explain this one to us. Margaret will have to explain that one to us.
When I get through here, I'm going to WhatsApp her. I got to find out what's
yes.
And finally, Davini Leo says, "Stephen, Minister of Finance in the future." You see where you start?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that latter comment. Not sure about that latter comment, but certainly I'm willing to make my skills and talent available to the Grenadian people, George. You know, I have not been a beneficiary of public largesse in any way through my education. I have not been a beneficiary of scholarships and so on from the time I went to primary school right through to my doctorate level. I've always financed it myself with family help, thanks to my family, and to the institutions that I choose to get loans and so from, right? And support of my family. But I've always had the desire, George, to contribute to my country's development, mainly through the point of policy formulation and whatever I can do for country. People ask me, "Well, what are you doing here? Why did you come back?" Now, almost 90% of my graduating class from the IFE, Institute for Further Education, A-level, lives outside of Grenada. I'm one of the few that is here and that is plowing on and still willing to make our skill set available. Although many a times our public sector and so on is not accepted, but we find ways to work probably through the private sector, through the NGO community and so on, to make our skill sets available. And I will continue to do so.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Join me giving him a hand. I want you to stay right there for a minute because I have to just read a parting word here from the Holy Scriptures, and then you and I can have a little chat after. My dear friends, thank you so much. This is where we're going to have to pull the curtain down on this week's edition of Sundays with George Grant. Parting word from the Holy Scriptures. This one comes to you from the book of Ezekiel, chapter 18, 21 and 22. Check it out. But if a wicked person turns away from all the sins they have committed and keeps all my decrees and does what is just and right, that person will surely live. They will not die. None of the offenses they have committed will be remembered against them because of the righteous things they have done. They will live. Check it out. Ezekiel 18, 21 to 22. On that note, Georgie Porgy's going to go try and feed his face. Mags, what do you got for lunch today, girl? I'm hungry. Thank you very much for joining us, and please be sure to join us again tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, for the next edition of Good Day, Grenada. Fiscal Alert, because of the technical issues we're having here, Fiscal Alert in its regular form may not exist tomorrow. We may just do a phone patch tomorrow to get that program on the air. But one way or another, check us out. I'm sure there's going to be something edifying for you. Have yourselves a great day, and may the good Lord bless and keep you. I'm George Grant. Ciao, ciao.